Part 67. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 678. The whole Sicily has almost no resistance in front of the three vampire families, just like the little girl in the face of the big Han, can only be left to the mercy. However, this smooth sailing does not satisfy the vampire. Perhaps only a small accident, that the guy named Green Wolf quietly fled from the blood of the psychedelic, but also let the noble Marquis of Giovanni have a little expectation, just like the entertainment after the tiger's full meal, and not eager to swallow the prey, but play a few rounds with the prey. Violet Academy. A master of magic? This fun is really good. Vampires are noble blood, they cannot stand any dirty and ugly places, so fascinated by the Life Pub, the most prosperous and most luxurious place in Palermo, it became the residence of the Marquis of Giovanni. For the Marquis of Giovanni, it was a very frustrating thing to be defeated in the 13 family races, but it was rare to find two people here even in the blood family. The high standard of aesthetics is also a beautiful beauty, but it is really a surprise, and it has dispelled most of his heart. These two beautiful women are the directors of the fascinating Life Pubs, Monica and Elaine. What makes the Marquis of Giovanni look at them is that they are not as impatient as other mortal girls to come together and want to be close to the noble blood. It is a frosty look. Giovanni's self-proclaimed love, naturally will not be strong, he firmly believes that it will not take long, you can break the heart of these two elf girls with purple skin, let them become their latest family. For the backing behind Palermo, a magician with a magic tower on an island not far away, the Marquis of Giovanni sneered at it, what is the magic master? Compared with being a true ancestor, there is nothing at all. The reason why vampires have only 13 families is because there are only 13 real ancestors. Every true ancestor has an independent blood source and inheritance, and also has independent consciousness and autonomy. All family members below the true ancestors are the ancestors of the true ancestors or the genus of the genus, their past, present, future, all destiny mastered in the hands of the true ancestors. Giovanni is one of the 13 true ancestors of the vampire. Although the time to become the true ancestor is the shortest, his potential is not to be underestimated. His blood source is named as blood sex instinct, although the usual state he is gentle, but the real one is indeed the bloodiest and most like a vampire. When the Marquis of Giovanni was enjoying himself in a fascinating life, a whole group of Arcane Corps and the Knights of the Dawn had set sail and headed for Sicily. The entire army was carried by 3 ships, in addition to the Violet, and her 2 sister ships, the Smooth and the Morning. These 3 large vessels over 100 meters in length are not considered to be warships, but they have far exceeding the speed of ships of the same size in this era. A Feng Shui magic pool is placed inside each ship's power cabin, which greatly enhances propulsion and reduces the resistance of the vessel. At this moment, although the 3 ships are fully loaded, they still have a speed of more than 70 kilometers per hour. Dawn is the last ship to get on and off the water from the Nanhai town dock. This ship was given as a gift by Ziwei and was given to the morning sun, Ulixia. The whole ship was decorated with a touch of gold. The religious style of the strong morning sect. Eurychia liked the gift very much, as did the Knights of the Dawn. The 2 sides had already negotiated the strategy before the expedition. In the early stage of the war against Sicily, the Natalia army commander of Natalia appeared and launched an attack. When he really won the Sicily, he began to squat in Ethan. When the vampires of the kingdom proceeded to conquest, they were then cooperated by both sides and led by Ulyssia and her Knights of the Dawn. In the sky above and around the fleet, a large area of meteorological camouflage spells were prepared. If long-distance vision is used to detect, the sea surface will be calm, and the maximum degree of concealment will remain. In contrast, in the captain's room of the Violet, the holographic projection setup of Zero has begun the detection of internal intelligence in Palermo. In the holographic projection setting, the distant Palermo is a darkness, but in the dark there are red markers of different sizes moving in the city. Vampires above the model can be detected by this blood sensing device. They are marked with the smallest red dot. Vampires above the master are marked with a flashing red dot, and vampires with legendary ranks and above are blood-colored gimmicks. 11 Wei explained to Natalia and Yulichia. While waiting for Euclia to reply and go out, Ziwei and Zero were not without any preparation. They developed some new spells and magic devices for vampires based on the characteristics of vampires. This blood-sensing device is one of the results. The vampire's blood energy is the only criterion for determining the vampire level. The stronger the blood energy, the stronger the disturbance and fluctuation of the surrounding magic elements. By observing and analyzing this wave disorder, the phenomenon can be reversed. The blood energy of a vampire. This device was first put into use and therefore can only be used for reference. If the blood sensing device is running perfectly, and everything it shows is correct, the vampires we face in the city of Palermo have a legend, 5 masters, more than 40 high level. Natalia analysis. This is not much different from the information we obtained from other sources. The capture of Palermo is the Giovanni family among the 13 blood races. The Marquis of Giovanni is the youngest of the 13 true ancestors. It is also the shallowest one, so there are only 5 vampire counts under his arm, and the genus is not much. The supreme of the vampires, the Prince of Nicholas, who is only the vampire of the legendary ranks, is more than 8. It's not surprising, you know that vampires are long-lived. The legendary knights of the Rhineland Federation, even if they are old and sick, average life is only 180 years old, but vampires can easily live to the millennium. Explain, not only vampires, demons, liches, dark elves, and elves of the Yangju Island in the Dark Council are long-lived species. The proportion of the strong in these races far exceeds that of humans. But humans also have humans. The advantage is that it is good at learning and exploring, and the speed of progress is very fast. Beyond Palermo is getting closer and closer. Let's discuss how to take down Palermo, Eulizia reminded. It is necessary to know that not only Natalia and Ziwei, but even the younger Lord of the Morning, Eulizia himself, did not really participate in a war. Before this war, everyone was excited and full of expectations. Pamo is our city, our territory, so we can't fight in front, and we can't cause too much casualties. Natalia proposed a factor outside the military. Then use the dagger tactic. Ziwei's hand slanted everything, take the Marquis of Giovanni directly, and then control the entire Palermo. After saying that 11 Wei stopped Natalia, who was eager to try. You are the commander of the Arcane Corps, and you can command the army here with peace of mind. Natalia pouted and finally held back. Well, Ziwei, be careful, Marquis of Giovanni is a veteran legendary strongman. Ziwei has launched the dark side of the moon, and his figure is looming and will soon disappear under the shadow of the moon. I came to secretly guard, just in case. Eulizia, who did not need to play in the Battle of Sicily, went forward and took the hand of Ziwei. The two disappeared in front of Natalia. It's not yet when my vows are victorious. Natalia shook her fist. I am the commander of the army. Eulizia, your curiosity is very strong. Ziwei and Yulicha quickly passed through the White Shark Harbor and entered the interior of Palermo. Woman's curiosity, I think you should have experienced it. Eulixia smiled and licked her long blonde hair, and her tone was light and lively. The ignorant Marquis of Giovanni is doing a very enjoyable activity, that is feeding the little loli. This little loli is still less than 1 year old. She combines her father's green wolf and mother Heidi's excellent genes. She looks very cute and loves people. Now, her mother, Heidi, is looking worriedly at everything that is happening in front of her. Although she doesn't have any shackles, she still can't move even a small finger. Giovanni's feeding of Lolita is precisely the transformed blood energy. What he is doing is transforming the little loli into his own genus. This kind of transformation from the early childhood stage is perfect. Of course, only a very small number of human children can bear this kind of blood group transformation. They will grow up quickly and become the leader among the blood youth. Little Loli, who is under the age of a young man, does not know that the handsome middle-aged man who holds himself on the palm of his hand is a terrible blood-sucking monster. She the red blood on Giovanni's finger and looks innocent. Yinhong's blood can seep into her blood, her heart, and her brain, transforming her body into a real blood family. Although Heidi was just 16 years old, her instinct as a mother made her struggle fiercely, but it was all in vain. This is a gift from a noble blood family. Your daughter will be my family. She will have a long life and a bright future. When you are buried in the grave for thousands of years, your daughter can still pay for you. Xiao Fanai looked at Heidi with a pitiful expression. This woman also has the physique of becoming a good vampire, but unfortunately she is no longer pure. But it's a pity that no one can pay for your sacrifice. At this moment, a rush of history came from above, and the golden sand of time was like a rain, splashing. 11 Wei's figure emerged from the dark side of the moon. Facing a vampire ancestor, he directly used the 9-ring legendary time spells that were learned in the whirlpool of time with the help of the Dragon of Time Chromie. Time Warp. The timeline in this area is instantly twisted by the time-space twist spell, and the time around the west dimension is accelerated by more than 50%, while the time around Giovanni in the sand of time is slowed down. Doubled. After being promoted to the legendary field, the cost of the time warp spell by 11 Wei is greatly reduced. This spell can already be used as a regular spell. Giovanni's alarm bell. This is an extremely rare legendary time spell, only a true legendary caster can cast. Sylvester Frost, isn't this the magician of the legendary Violet? He is just 18 years old in the data. How could he have become a legendary caster? After 300 years, he was promoted to the vampire ancestor, and the 13th family of hemorrhagic people was created. If compared with the Zaiwei master, wouldn't he live on a dog for 300 years? However, he did not sit still. Tyrannical blood can instantly burn around his body, the source of blood-skin instinct launched. The wild bloodthirsty changed his whole person from a noble aristocrat to a bloodthirsty beast in a flash, and the red blood stained all the skin and organs he had exposed to him. The instinct of bloodthirsty made him greatly relieved from the time delay, and Giovanni immediately made a magic seal to the young mage who was singing in the air. This is the most powerful legendary power for the caster in Blood Source. Once hit, you can lock the enemy's heart lake in a short time and interrupt the enemy's ability to cast spells. However, this is not used for eggs. The banned blood seal directly hit the young mage, but the figure of the mage turned into a dream bubble. In fact, the West Victoria, including the first appearance of the sands when it was swaying, is an illusion. The time warp spell does not require these fancy spellcasting actions. The real Zaiwei has already sung in the dark enough to decide the outcome. A combination of spells burning the flames and the fire of the sun, a 9-ring legendary spell. Flame magic is the most powerful spell in the elemental school to deal with vampires. High-temperature flames and bursting fire elements can easily destroy the aggregation and hub of blood energy. Flame is also the second energy that vampires are most annoying next to glorious power. Blood of blood. In the face of the shock of the West Phoenix, which turned into a phoenix flame, the Marquis of Giovanni directly shot another killer, and the blood of the sky was turned into a blood-red big hand, directly facing the phoenix fire of Zaiwei. Hit it up. As early as in the moment of the appearance of Zaiwei, the secret Eulizia had already sheltered Heidi and her little daughter. Although she did not take the shot according to the agreement, she observed the legendary caster and vampire at the nearest distance. The life and death between the true ancestors. She held the little girl gently in her arms, and the faint golden light of the morning light sprouted from her, and the blood of the little baby girl was gently stripped out, without even a trace of the weak body of the little girl. Damage. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Du. Chapter 679. In the Orient continent before the sacred calendar 1787, a strong master of the master class is already a hegemon, such as the pirate King Cook, Natalia's father, Count Bonaparte. The legendary ranks are very rare. They are famous and have a high status, but they are like distant myths. They are far away from ordinary people. However, after the turbulent year, the Dark Parliament's aggressive attack on Orient directly raised the level of power to a new height. It is called "The legend goes everywhere, the master is not as good as the dog." The battle between the legendary powerhouses can never come to me like many people imagine, like a performance in a ring game, 1 round and 1 round. Even if every strong person who can be promoted to legend in the long years has many means of keeping the bottom of the box and life-saving measures, but once the decision is made, there is still a good chance of death. Therefore, when confronting the Marquis of Giovanni, Zai Wei holds a cautious heart, never frivolous, and never hesitates. After using the dark side of the moon, he immediately used the time warp to get 2 fires. Elemental inscription spells, aiming to win and gain the upper hand. However, with the information and intelligence of Zai Wei, the understanding of blood energy can never be too deep. In the face of the strange blood energy that Giovanni suddenly broke out, Zai Wei chose the most secure treatment. After the raging flames of the phoenix, a star-studded star suddenly emerged. It is the 8-ring master level spell of the space school created by Zai Wei himself, Star Barrier. Time and space, even across different universes, is the most profound and powerful source of the whole world. The stars and barriers can solve any strange attack of the enemy by constructing a different space that is similar to the stability of the diamond. It is a super active defense spell. The blood-blowing grip played by Marquis de Giovanni failed to face the phoenix flames on the face, but the Giovanni instantly realized that she had lost contact with this part of the blood. This makes Giovanni angry, knowing that the growth of vampires depends on the blood energy that grows slowly over time, and the attacks and spells that can be played by any blood source can be recycled at any time and will not be consumed. However, the overwhelming phoenix flame suddenly came, and the hot flame quickly sizzled the temperature in the surrounding air to the extreme, and everything around it became chaotic, as if the whole space was distorted. Anything is done to the extreme, it will be very powerful, and the phoenix flame that Zai Wei is playing at the moment is a step-by-step pushback of 36 flame element inscriptions to the last 2 master level flame element inscriptions. The flame element inscription is only a trial of the last step, and the control and application of the flame element is almost to the extreme. Giovanni originally dismissed the flames of Zai Wei. How could he be a true ancestor? How could he be afraid of fire spells like ordinary vampires? However, after truly feeling the horrible flame of this roast world, Giovanni changed his face, and his blood could instantly gather into a ball and wrap his whole person in it. This is his strongest defensive blood power, the blood of the blood. Once he relied on this powerful blood source power to resist the legendary spells of the 2 legendary spellcasters and unharmed. All of this happened between the electric and the flint, from the appearance of the Zai Wei illusion to the birth of Giovanni, but it took only 10 seconds. The next moment, the violent fire of the burning world was hit on the source of blood. Although Zai Wei tried to control the scope of this spell, the lavish and wealthy building of the fascinating life pub was instantly baked in the flames of the flaming phoenix to the edge of the collapse. It is necessary to know that the flames summoned by the master on the outer continent are not only high temperatures, but the fire of wild elements is more powerful. In just a few breaths, people on the street outside can see the walls of the entire fascinating life hotel become red, just like a sun is rising inside the pub. Monica, Elaine, and the night elves in the tavern have been rescued and protected by Eulizia. The Dawn Sanctuary does not only refer to the hidden space in the grounds of the Notre Dame de Paris, but also the Lord of the Morning. The sacred and powerful power of Eulizia can form a near-invincible enchantment and guard the chosen person. In the next moment, the magnificent fascinating life pub disappeared instantly. At the original site of the pub, the wildfire element still maintains the gorgeous form of the phoenix. Nearly all the magic is used to break the ball of Giovanni's incarnation. In the first line of confrontation between elements and blood energy conflicts, horrible collisions are taking place. The energy consumption is far beyond the imagination of ordinary professionals. The surface of the blood is violently undulating, and seems to be picked like a bubble at any time. Broken. Arcane Core, Attack. Cavalry Assault, Swift Flight Blessing. Natalia, who had just landed at White Shark Harbor, saw the terrorist explosion that happened in the fascinating Life pub, and saw that it was shocked by this explosion. The bats flew to the blood of the sky. All the enemies are exposed, this is the best time to attack. The arcane knights who have long been ready to go sit on the magical leopard. These blue spirits are the first time to walk out of their own small world and come to this vast new world. Although they are recruits, they have high morale. Swift Flight is a wind element 5-ring gain spell that helps arcane cavalry to fly low at low altitudes, turning them into flight units. However, the Swift Flight spell is very expensive, so it can only be used for elite squad raids, but not directly for the entire army. The magical leopard flies up in the air and flies directly to the blood race in heaven. The entire elite commando smurfs are all 5-ring magicians, so they directly cast elemental spells against the blood family. Red Flame Lock, which is a shackle with a stable flame crystallization spell to uniform those with super high movement speeds. Almost in a flash, many low-level blood races are bound by the red elements, and the blood in their bodies can't help them break through the shackles. What makes them even more frightened is that they can't complete the transformation of the bats from the shackles. However, the 5-ring Red Flame Lock spell can't restrain the vampires of high level and master level. They instantly stretch out the vampire fangs, ready to kill these arrogant enemies. At this time, the black sacred priest of the Night Elf tribe, the Black Scorpion, came out in the crowd. She looked sacred in the robes of the goddess of the moon god, and her silvery moon on her forehead shone brightly. On the dim sky, there was a silver moon phantom in a moment, and the faint white moon glow fell from the sky. This white moonlight has no effect on humans. However, for the blood races in the sky, such moonlight is just like the poison of horror. The goddess of silver moon in the moonlight makes them become one by one. Weak and incomprehensible, those people with low strength like the dumplings have fallen from the sky. Only 5 vampires of the master class can compete against this 7-ring silver moon god, but the appearance of the silver moon goddess makes them apparently think of the purple-red skin elves in Palermo. Their faces change greatly while their eyes invested in a fascinating life pub that has become a ruin. Oh, the horrible Big Bang caused the earth to shake. A figure flew quickly into the sky. He stretched the wings and revealed the vampire fangs. This is his strongest fighting state, but now he is so embarrassed. His whole clothes have long been turned into fly ash under the roasting of the phoenix flames. His favorite dark blue long hair has disappeared, and only the white and light big bald head is leaking. It looks very ridiculous. The skin on his body is also covered with sores, like a hen that has been plucked, and it can be said that the face is lost. The vampires of the Giovanni family were stunned one by one, and the great true ancestors turned into a hairless hen. Giovanni immediately took out a new set of clothes on his body. Damn mortal, you angered me. He has been out of anger in front of all the people of the family and the whole city. He was forced to use the legendary 9-ring magical weapon on the opposite side of the blood. He didn't expect the power of this young wizard to be so powerful, far more than the legendary caster he had fought before. Blood boiling. Giovanni raised his hands high as if to embrace the sky. The red light curtain centered on him and quickly expanded, covering one block after another, almost covering the entire city of Palermo. With a gentle wave of his right hand, everyone in the red light curtain area felt that the blood in his body was burning like an uncontrollable jump. Those old, frail young people could not stand such stimulation. I fainted in the blink of an eye. As the true ancestor of the vampire, Giovanni has reached a very superb level of control over the blood. Under his manipulation, these mortal blood are constantly adding blood to him. As long as there are creatures and blood in the battlefield, he will never fail. 11 Wei frowned, the other is a legendary strong, he cannot use space magic to transfer the other side away from the current battlefield, unless he can achieve the legendary caster of the space school. The highest inheritance of the space school of breakthrough of universal knowledge has been built in his soul, but the time of Ziwei is too tight. He has just broken through the legendary ranks through the best elemental school spells. The shortcomings have not been completed in space and other schools. So at this moment, Ziwei can only continue to use elemental spells, and he also took out the trick of pressing the bottom of the box. When he was still in the stage of Magic Masters, his bottom box trick was a blazing white sun that was comparable to the power of legendary spells. With this spell, he defeated the Marquis of Clozel in the sacred duel of the French Royal Martial Arts. When Ziwei was promoted to the legendary ranks, his understanding of the ethereal and elemental elements naturally came to a new level. Now, the spells that Ziwei wants to perform are the latest achievements of the mystery of etherics. The body of Ziwei began to change, and the material were transformed into elements and energy. Only in the form of the elemental body can the spell be cast. P.S. A few hundred words have not been written, change after the first, sorry. Oh, the horrible Big Bang caused the earth to shake. A figure flew quickly into the sky. He stretched the wings and revealed the vampire fangs. This is his strongest fighting state, but now he is so embarrassed. His whole clothes have long been turned into fly ash under the roasting of the phoenix flames. His favorite dark blue long hair has disappeared, and only the white and light big bald head is leaking. It looks very ridiculous. The skin on his body is also covered with sores, like a hen that has been plucked, and it can be said that the face is lost. The vampires of the Giovanni family were stunned one by one, and the great true ancestors turned into a hairless hen. Giovanni instantly took out a new set of clothes on her body. Damn mortal, you provoked me. He was out of anger in the presence of ugliness in front of the people of the city and the whole city. He was forced to use the legendary 9-ring magical weapon on the opposite side of the blood of the blood. He didn't expect the power of this young wizard to be so powerful, far more than the legendary caster he had fought before. Blood boiling. Giovanni raised his hands high as if to embrace the sky. The red light curtain centered on him and quickly expanded, covering one block after another, almost covering the entire city of Palermo. With a gentle wave of his right hand, everyone in the red light curtain area felt that the blood in his body was burning like an uncontrollable jump. Those old, frail young people could not stand such stimulation. I fainted in the blink of an eye. As the true ancestor of the vampire, Giovanni has reached a very superb level of control over the blood. Under his manipulation, these mortal blood are constantly adding blood to him. As long as there are creatures and blood in the battlefield, he will never fail. 11 Wei frowned, the other is a legendary strong, he cannot use space magic to transfer the other side away from the current battlefield, unless he can achieve the legendary caster of the space school. The highest inheritance of the space school of breakthrough of universal knowledge has been built in his soul, but the time of Ziwei is too tight. He has just broken through the legendary ranks through the best elemental school spells. The shortcomings have not been completed in space and other schools. So at this moment, Ziwei can only continue to use elemental spells, and he also took out the trick of pressing the bottom of the box. When he was still in the stage of Magic Masters, his bottom box trick was a blazing white sun that was comparable to the power of legendary spells. With this spell, he defeated the Marquis of Clozel in the sacred duel of the French Royal Martial Arts. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 680. As a stranger, Zai is naturally not limited by the basics of the Aborigines. All the spells are ever-changing, and it is still necessary to make a fuss about energy and law. Luan Net. The element is essentially the energy source of the Orient world, and the fifth element is the first and most powerful energy carrier. Ether Railgun is the horrific attack that the ether element energy super compresses through a very sophisticated spell model after entering the legendary ranks. Even if Zai enters the legendary rank and then grows again, after the attack, it also became empty, like a reservoir after flood discharge, and only slowly reaccumulated. For energy intensity, Sci-Wei has also done many standard measurements and tried to keep the energy constant by one standard unit. But even the same spells can be very different in the power of different magicians, and the measurement of energy intensity is difficult, so the progress in this area is not fast. However, Zai still roughly drafted the energy unit. The spell strength of a standard ring spell magic missile was set at 1 degree, and a standard 9-ring legendary spell Coffin Fire. This spell is almost the simplest master. The spell power of the most legendary spells is set to 1 Hz. 1 Hz is about 785,000 degrees, which is also the difference between the real 9-ring legendary spell and a ring of magic. It is a world of difference. Degree can be used to measure the power of spells under the legend, then Hertha is used to measure the power of legendary spells and even sacred spells. The Phoenix Flames that Zai rated when he was attacking Giovanni, whose power was as high as 4.7 Hz, far exceeded the scope of the legendary caster. And Zai incarnates the etheric body, super compresses the etheric energy and then launches the super orbital gun of this ruined space. Its spell power exceeds 12 Hz. The speed of energy surging is almost comparable to the speed of light. Although Giovanni, the vampire's true ancestor, has a ghostly movement speed, he can never exceed the speed of light. Giovanni only comes and screams, and then the whole person it was hit by this railgun into a different space, leaving only a torn space vortex. Zai then stepped into it. He also had the space to fill the space spell, smoothing the torn space, and the torn chaos disappeared in the sky. It seems that nothing happened. Everyone stunned and looked at this scene, giving them a mental impact too strong. All the vampires are so scared that the great Giovanni ancestors, the legendary vampires, are actually defeated by a seemingly young and overexciting magician. Even those who are close to Zai, including Natalia, can only be amazed by this horrible blow. Even if Natalia is so strong, she can only helplessly face her fiancé. The gap between the two is not narrowed, but more and more powerful. No one can be shocked in front of this horrible blow. Although there is no such beautiful light and shadow effect as the spells, or a huge range of castings, it is purely the energy that is enough to tear the space, and it also has a fatal beauty. The reason why Zai pursued the different space, because he was keenly aware that Giovanni did not die in this ether railgun hit. However, in the chaotic star space, for a space magician is the absolute home, and lost the blood energy provided by the mortal city, then Giovanni cannot continue to restore blood. In fact, at the beginning, Zai did not have the confidence to eliminate the vampire ancestors of Giovanni. It is necessary to know that any legendary strongman has too many magical means of life-saving. It is easy to defeat and it is difficult to kill. But now, with Giovanni being unprepared to be hit into the space of the astral by a track gun, the probability that Zai really kills the vampire's true ancestor is increased to 80%. Stepping into the chaotic star space, Zai determined his position in a short period of time. This place has deviated far from the main material plane of the Orient world, showing how terrible the power of his etheric orbital gun. There is only one ruined big bat in the distance. He can't maintain the human form. The half-body disappears, and how miserable it is. However, in the face of this state, the Marquis of Giovanni, Zai did not have mercy and did not take it lightly. He stood far in the void and cast a spell of explosion that is very suitable for the traditional elemental school of the current situation. This is a water and earth 2-element compound 9-ring legendary spell that directly destroys the internal tissues and organs of the enemy. The enemies hit by this legendary spell are very miserable. It can be said that the standard is dead, and sometimes even a little bit. The broken ends are not found. In the heyday of Giovanni, this spell had no effect on him, but the wild railgun completely broke through the blood energy in his body, making him lose his ability to resist. The impulsive spell power is only 0.72 Hertha. After all, this is a single spell that can't compete with the group's Stone Rain, but for a single target, this spell is really powerful. An implosion hit, the remaining body of Giovanni explodes in an instant, and the smoke is gone, nothing is left. However, Ziwei did not relax his vigilance. He stood still in the same place, as if waiting for something. Damn ants, Giovanni finally could not continue to maintain his extraordinary hidden state, forced to emerge from the void. Just the tattered body is just a trap for him, although he was very miserable by the Aetherius orbital cannon, but it is not completely lost. He had planned to secretly slap Ziwei, but unfortunately the young mage was too cautious and did not give him a chance until his extraordinary concealment duration ended, and the other party still did not step into the trap. It can be said that Giovanni has fallen into an absolute disadvantage. He can't even stay in the astrology for too long. If he can't make a quick decision, he can only be slaughtered. In the astral world, the elements are thin, and the power of most elemental spells in Ziwei is greatly reduced, but for him this is not a problem, but rather a very good time to practice space spells. The astral borders all the multidimensional planes. In the astral world, the power of space spells has also increased to a very powerful level. 11 Ways Face of Aurora swiftly hits Giovanni with a slight smile and makes a very interesting the original space spell, Klein Bottle. If the Mobius ring can perfectly represent a one-dimensional infinitely expandable space model in two-dimensional space, the Klein Bottle is a space model of two-dimensional infinite expansion in three-dimensional space. Reference: if the original space magician can only transmit short distances or find a stable half-plane to make storage space, the space school magician has begun to gradually space the entire Orient world before and after being promoted to the legendary field. Domains and rules are analyzed and studied. In the hands of Ziwei, the Klein Bottle is a perfect cage. It is a perfect upgrade to the maze. If it is not a certain degree of space, then it can only be used. The way to brute force. Giovanni slammed into the Klein Bottle. As a legendary strongman, he naturally had an epic magical thing that could break the maze. However, when he twisted the space out of the ring, he could not get out of this strange bottle of space. Giovanni was in a mess, but I didn't expect this guy to have an extraordinary accomplishment of time spells, and he was so proficient in space spells. Whether it's space spells or time spells, it's not a bad thing in magic. The power of these two universes is far more difficult than the ordinary spells of elements, protection, change, summoning, even if Giovanni has seen it. Those legendary casters with hundreds of years of life, and only a handful of legendary casters who have a deep understanding of space or time spells, and who have the ability to simultaneously make sense of space and time spells, can be said to be a powerful magician with a name. However, now, this young and overexcited magician is really completely restrained by himself, and all the cards are out, and there is nothing to do. Heavy despair. Ziwei directly added an 8-ring force field spell inside the Klein Bottle. Giovanni was directly crushed by this gravity more than 50 times, like a dead fish on the ground. The Styx shocks, in the face of the vampire ancestors who completely lost all the power, Ziwei finally made a final blow, simulating the endless river turbulence, and the spells that hit the soul penetrated the space of public opinion composed of Klein bottles, impacting the soul of Giovanni. Giovanni really fell into the deepest despair. His vitality is tenacious and terrible, the ordinary legend cannot put him to death, at most it is to suppress his seal, at least still have a glimmer of hope. After all, this mage can't be the opponent of Prince Nicholas anyway. He dares to attack the great blood family and even suppress himself. That is the immortal enemies with the blood. But unfortunately, I am going to die. If I die, then even if the prince explodes for himself, everything is useless. Giovanni gave a painful mourning. Even though he was a vampire ancestor, he could not bear the horrible shock of the direct attack on the soul. He had already smashed the ultimate soul and loosely disintegrated in the shock of the endless meditation. Eventually it was completely dispersed into pieces and died. One of the 13 true ancestors of the vampire, the powerful vampire Marquis Giovanni, killed. Ziwei opened the Klein bottle, and the only remaining remains of Giovanni, 2 sharp vampires and fangs. Zero had a research interest in his soul fragments, and was directly packaged and taken away. When Ziwei once again opened the space channel and returned to Palermo, he showed 2 vampire fangs belonging to Giovanni in front of everyone. The vampires who were still resisting lost all their fighting spirits, and the great true ancestors actually died. Their souls instantly produced great shocks. The death of the true ancestors was a terrible torture for the entire members of the Giovanni family. They completely lost their fighting power and fell into a state of pain and wilting. If you give them enough time, you can still calm down, but now, they can only become the captives of the arcane core. The entire chaotic city fell into the hands of the Violet, and the 3 vampire families squatting on Sicily were also swept away. In addition to the fascinating life pub completely destroyed in the Phoenix Flame of Ziwei, there was no loss for personnel and other aspects. No problem, I was originally fascinated by the plan to expand. The original building was completely useless, Ms. Monica said with a happy face. This is also the cost and time of demolition, which can be rebuilt in the original site. Heidi, my lover, I am so happy to see you safe and sound, the Green Wolf clasped his little wife in his arms excitedly shouted. Green Wolf, I am very happy to see you again, I thought this time is dead. Heidi also held her little daughter, and she was spared the tears of excitement. Ziwei, you are really stronger than I thought. Although I thought that you might beat the vampire ancestors, what we didn't think was that you could kill him directly and the soul collapsed, Lord Eulizia said with a complex feeling that although she always had a very high evaluation of Ziwei, this time she refreshed her cognition again. P.S. It's still a few hundred words, I'm going to make it up, sorry. Their souls instantly produced great shocks. The death of the true ancestors was a terrible torture for the entire members of the Giovanni family. They completely lost their fighting power and fell into a state of pain and wilting. If you give them enough time, you can still calm down, but now, they can only become the captives of the arcane core. The entire chaotic city fell into the hands of the Violet, and the 3 vampire families squatting on Sicily were also swept away. In addition to the fascinating life pub completely destroyed in the Phoenix Flame of Ziwei, there was no loss for personnel and other aspects. No problem, I was originally fascinated by the plan to expand. The original building was completely useless, Ms. Monica said with a happy face. This is also the cost and time of demolition, which can be rebuilt in the original site. Heidi, my lover, I am so happy to see you safe and sound, the Blue Wolf clasped his little wife in his arms and shouted excitedly. Green Wolf, I am very happy to see you again, I thought this time is dead. Heidi also held her little daughter, and she was spared the tears of excitement. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 681. In fact, the news of the death of Marquis de Giovanni did not hide for a long time. Although Giovanni died in the space of the astral space, there is a basic sense between the vampires and the true ancestors. When the atmosphere belongs to Giovanni, Sicily, the Duke of Norfolk and the Marquis of Ruffuno on the island have already received this shocking news. Text equals. Not long after, Marquis Ruffuno led an important family member from his own residence into the city of Catania, the capital city of Sicily. The prince's offensive against the kingdom of Italy is in full swing. Now, apart from Milan and Turin, the other 18 cities of the kingdom of Italy have all fallen into the hands of our blood race. The Marquis of Rufano was quick and fast. Fast, but how can Giovanni suddenly die? Not being suppressed, but the fire of the soul is completely extinguished. Although he is the youngest vampire ancestor, the ordinary legendary strong cannot be his opponent. Is it the big man of the Church of the Glorious Lord shot? No, the soldiers of the Cephas family have spread to the outside of Vatican. If those big shots are shot, it will not be against Giovanni. What kind of trouble does he have? The cigar in the hands of the Duke was a meal, and Mars fell on the red carpet. We still have to be cautious. On the one hand, we will send out reconnaissance forces to determine the identity of the enemy. On the other hand, we must not be taken lightly. The Marquis of Rufano looks not very good. My ancestors have just started breeding. It was interrupted. This is a great loss. Yes, we must solve the trouble as soon as possible, at all costs. The Duke of Norfolk extinguished the cigar in his hand and looked gloomy. When the fleet of the Violet and 2 other ships traveled around Catania to the coastline of Sicily, Civi and Ulicia had taken the lead to the city under the vampire. What kind of attraction does the Orient world have? Let the members of the Dark Council rush like the madness of the dog, under the influence of the dark side of the moon. Even if it is heavily guarded, it is monitored. Inside the city, no one can find 2 people who are slowly taking a walk in the streets of the city. Look at the city under the vampire's rule. After field trips and combining with the literature, you know what kind of horror and disaster humans will endure if the darkness is allowed to spread. Ulysses sighed. The vampire, the promotion and family growth all depend on the source blood, and the growth of the source blood must have enough blood slaves. The process of increasing the blood slaves is called herding. Human beings can be transformed into vampires, becoming so called. There are only a handful of longevity species, and the probability of 1% is not enough. Most human beings can only become blood slaves under the rule of vampires, just like the animals that vampires keep. Yes, in the eyes of vampires, there is no difference in the status of human beings and beasts. The only thing that breeds is to provide enough blood for vampires and become the source of their own growth. Ziwei and Ulicia discussed this. A serious topic. I am not prejudiced against vampires, but it is unacceptable for me to reverse the history and return to the barbarism from civilization. Not only vampires, the undead came to Orient, bringing death and eternal slavery. The devil came to Orient, bringing tyranny and soul fragmentation. The orcs came to Orient, bringing it is the torture of killing and suffering. If no one stands up and resists, this will be the darkest and most indulgent era in human history. Ulicia looked at the people on the streets in 2s and 3s, and they were all faceless and stupid. Hey, this is the price of being a blood slave. The most essential nutrients in the body are taken by vampires. They can only live like a dead body, and they will be slaughtered like animals at any time. There is no possibility of resistance. The military sentiment from the north, the kingdom of Italy is finished. Benist died in the 12th century, and died in the hands of his own queen. The queen of Libya is the prince of Prince Nicholas. All the Iraq, including Milan. The city of Tanley has been completely ruled by the vampire family. A magical white pigeon of a spell flew into the palm of Ziwei, bringing a bad news. And this heavy darkness, starting from Sicily, going to the kingdom of Italy, and then to the whole of Orient. Ulicia's pace slowed down and eventually stopped. She looked directly at Ziwei. If you can, let me come to the end of these sinful vampires. Thank you. Ziwei's elegant return. The 2 vampires are in the castle of the foothills, and our fleet will take half an hour to arrive. If the Marquis of Rufano and the Duke of Norfolk know that they have ignited the anger of a demigod, they will definitely escape without hesitation, away from the capital of Sicily, which has just ruled for less than half a month. City. However, even if they are the most meticulous and secretive reconnaissance, they cannot find the figure of Ziwei and Ulicia, and they do not know that the deployment of the whole city has been completely reconnaissed by the blood sensing device, and the data and information are transmitted back on the flagship Violet. At this moment, the commander of the Arcane Corps Natalia is full of enthusiasm. This is the last battle of the Battle of Sicily and the final battle. The hidden cards of the Arcane Corps can finally be revealed. The Violet, the Smurfs, and the Dawn, the three ships disarmed and lined up in a bay outside the city of Catania, and in a flash they were discovered by vampires in the sky. The shrill alarm sounded throughout the city of Catania, and soon the overwhelming bats flew into the sky and flew towards the bay outside the city. Natalia Cannon, fire, wearing a blue uniform, Natalia with a golden belt, slammed the high-handed right hand, and the three-ship side had already been calibrated and the adjusted artillery squad began the casting process. The artillery named after Natalia is a long-range artillery that was displayed on the parade. The magical array has long been engraved on the core of the artillery. The gunner's casting process is only equivalent to igniting the fuse. Fast, the magic array of the core device begins to activate the charge, and the energy of the elements begins to converge. Booming, it was already on the bay in the evening, and suddenly a huge red fire was shining. More than a dozen red tracks crossed the sky, accurately invested in the city of Catania, and fell in the most dense place of the vampire. The next moment, the earth moved and the earth began to tremble. The humans in the city of Catania fell to the ground one by one. They fell into the vampire's rule for less than a month, and they have not really become numb. The power of the Natalia artillery is about the equivalent of the 7th ring master spell, but its cast range is beyond the usual 9-ring legendary spells, from the warships on the bay to the castles of Catania, about 8 kilometers away. This is the power of the real war magic weapon. The sudden attack of the artillery made the vampires unprepared, even though they were prepared to be on the alert, but the horrible flame crossed the sky a few kilometers away into the fortress and the stronghold that should have been very safe. This is really an incredible attack. The way is due to the death of the Marquis of Giovanni, the Duke of Nafile and the Marquis of Rufano did not rush to the sky. They have a terrible super long line of sight. Even if they stand in the window of the castle, they can see clearly. Who actually launched the attack? There are 3 ships in the bay. Their attack is similar to the magical armored ship of the Holy Norman Empire. No, although the power is not great, the distance of this spell is even more distant. We must raid them as soon as possible to break this passive beating the situation. Marquis Rufano extended a hand. I will send 5 bloodline counts, all of my powers. Spacania led the 6 bloodline counts, raided the ships in the harbor, destroying the magical things they used to attack the city. The Duke of Nafile was behind a silent middle-aged man in a black robe. Said, "Yes, dear master." The middle-aged man named Spacania turned into a black smog and disappeared from the castle. The Marquis of Rufano looked at this group of smoke thoughtfully. It is said that there is a vampire who is proficient in shadow martyrdom around the Duke of Nafile. He is a close confidant of his centuries and has done a lot of secret work. The vampires in the sky are flying. Change the clouds. The bats flying from the sky are densely packed with sound waves that make people want to faint. Most of these bats are magic creatures that are made by vampires. In the magical world, the attack that the cannon can play is not just a flame. In fact, the biggest feature of the magic cannon is that the attack range is far, far beyond the scope of the normal magician's casting. Zyway, Merrill, and others have been the artillery units. More than 10 different types of magic cannons have been developed to deal with different situations. The cloud bomb is the super weapon for dealing with large-scale air enemies. The 3 Smurfs high-level magicians completed the cloud bomb loading and activation work in an orderly manner. The Natalia cannon's muzzle is raised high and aligned. The high sky. The enemy has entered the range and fired. Natalia gave another order, and the cannons on the 3 ships were instantly activated, and the cloud bombs flew directly into the sky. As a special magic projectile, the cloud bomb is a second detonation in the sky. The process is very complicated. At present, only Ziwei and Meryl can make it, so there is not much stock. The light and shadow effect of the cloud bomb explosion is far less sharp than the previous artillery, and the sound is very small. It seems that there is no power at all. However, when the 3 cloud bombs detonated above the sky, the oxygen in the entire sky was almost burned out in an instant, and the field bombs were added with field enclosed spells, which would have been broad. The sky is divided into sections that cannot communicate with each other. Depressed for a long time, the sky suddenly burst into a red flame, like a cloud of fire. The entire sky above the bay was dyed into the color of the red dragonfly, illuminating the evening sky. Spakania looked at the scene quietly. The bat raid was only the first move. The real killer was the entire 10 vampire counts of his own and his men. The 2 families are more than half of the elite. This is more than 10 masters strong. Moreover, these bats are all magical creatures that are carefully cultivated by blood vampires with high blood. It is not an ordinary bat. This kind of flame will not cause too much trouble for these little cuties. However, when the fire dissipated, Spakania's face was instantly gloomy, and the overwhelming little cute ones lost their traces of life and fell from the sky into the ocean. Their flame protection runes were completely lost the effect. All the carefully cultivated little cuties are finished. Suffocate to death. A vampire count changed, they all suffocate and die. This is a master suffocation spell, not a flame spell. Choking is the most painful torture for these small magical bats. They can't stand the long-term inability to breathe. They all fall down in an instant, and the whole sky seems to have dropped black heavy rain. I am sending you close to the ship and quickly destroying the cannon on board, Spakania said to the 2 families of vampire counts. The black smoke in front of him gathered. Suddenly 11 vampires, the count is all covered in it. The black smoke spreads like a shadow in the bottom of the sea, flying like a warship in the bay, silent. However, all of this could not escape the zero blood sensing device. Natalia noticed that the holographic map was quickly approaching the 11 red marks at the bottom of Shanghai, and immediately realized that the danger is coming. Charlotte, start the mech, protect the Smurfs. After an urgent order, Natalia directly activated a blue-gold magic ring on the right index finger, which is the medium to summon the vows to victory. Natalia's light leap, the whole person jumped high above the sky, vowed that the huge mech of the victory was summoned from the ectopic face. Natalia was already in the cockpit, she was for herself. The mech is very familiar, just like the blood is connected. Throughout the battlefield, the vows of victory in the sky undoubtedly attracted the attention of all, including the soldiers of the Arcane Corps who had already seen it, and no one was shocked. This huge steel monster has a perfectly smooth body, looks full of the beauty of power, but can stay above the sky, prestige and imposing. Natalia was full of blood, her golden lion's blood was fully activated, her blue eyes turned into golden glazed crystals again, the mech and her movements reached perfect consistency, and both hands turned back and everyone heard a clear voice. Such as the sound of water. One shines like a diamond, the golden brilliance is like a long sword in the sky, and the long sword is drawn across the sky, accompanied by Natalia's loud voice and screaming directly from the sky to the sea, the sword of victory. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 682. This sound is resounding in the world, but the heart-thinking golden sword that has fallen from the sky is more shining than the catastrophe. With a breathtaking sense of repression, this soul is shaking. In particular, the 11 vampires who are passing through the shadow plane are most deeply touched, as if they were stared by natural enemies. For the mountain and sea breathing method, Natalia's mastery and sentiment have gradually approached the essence and connotation. When she throws this sword, she has formed a resonance with the sea under her feet. The enemy of the dark shadow is taken by this peace. The harmony between the heavens and the earth is violent and the stability of the entire passage begins to drop sharply. The core firepower of the Oath of Victory was fully opened, and the power of Natalia's power was fully enhanced. The brilliance of the elements on the swordsman directly increased the power of this attack to a degree of terror. Jingguang is like a long dragon, and the electric light flint is drilled into the sea. The whole bay is instantly divided into two halves like tofu. One sword swings 2 points, this sword is unparalleled. Not only that, Jianguanya Wei separated from the sea water of tens of meters, directly impacted the soft mud on the seabed, causing a violent shock, and the entire city of Catania was like a rock that was shaken. When the rushing nature is the 11 vampire counts, the shadow channel built by Spacania faces the horror blow that is enough to break the mountain and breaks, and the vampire who has been rushed out of the shadow channel rushes into the head. This blazing blaze is like a hot sun. Several extremely fast-moving vampire counts have opened the biggest life-saving stunts in the blink of an eye. Some of them have raised magical shields, some incarnations, thousands of bats, and some instant tearing space to escape. Shentong splits the mouse. No one will blindly arrogate to resist this attack like Tianwei, such an attack can only be displayed by the real legendary swordsman. However, there were 3 vampire counts who were dizzy from the shadow passage because of rush, and had no time to recognize the situation. They were directly smashed by the sword of victory. In the moment when the blade is added, the horrible energy shock instantly tears the blood protection and all the tissues and organs in their bodies. The vampire count leads to the proud level of regeneration and tough body, and the blazing edge is the ultimate. The attack did not work at all, and the fate of the end of death came in an instant. Even the incarnation of the bat and the vampire count that opened the magical hood, instantly melted under the glory of the sword of the vows of victory. They uttered a horrible mourning, and then turned into a rainbow before the soul completely disintegrated. With the horror of the sound, in the sky, I made a shadow, and I fled. This is the vampire's most powerful raid and life-saving skills, Blood Shadow Raid, which can burn blood energy in an instant, bursting out of incredible degrees. Of course, the cost of this skill is very important, at least a quarter of the blood energy in the body, and at least 1 month cannot be restored. It can be said that the upper limit of their own strength. However, just now, these vampire counts directly burned nearly half of the blood energy in the body, and they were able to escape from the sword of the vows of victory. They survived the battle, but they have lost more than half of their combat power. It is a waste. A sword is divided into 2 Cs, and the 11 masters of the vampires are fleeing, and in the end they are still 3 dead and 5 wounded. The power of one sword makes everyone shocked. Even the soldiers of the Arcane Corps can't think that their commander can actually. There are such shocking attacks. This is a powerful warrior even in the legendary ranks. This huge armor has greatly increased his strength. Perhaps Giovanni is dead under his attack. Marquis of Raffuno dive with a sigh of relief, muttered. No, if that's the case, he can't kill Giovanni. Although Giovanni is the youngest blood ancestor, his blood source is very strong. The cloak of the Duke of Nephile danced with the wind. His face was gloomy in the shadows, and the anger was boiling. Spacania may not be able to defeat this fleet, and it is time for us to play. The glory of the blood family cannot be smashed. The Marquis of Raffuno was originally awkward and instantly became straight. His body skyrocketed to a height of nearly 5 meters. The green eyes were like a dark night, and the white vampires were sharp and sharp. He was surrounded by a boiling body. The 2 vampire ancestors have to go all out to deal with the enemy's legendary powerhouse. However, at this time, the Duke of Nephile made a whisper of suspicion. Who is it? His eyes instantly burst into a scarlet glow, scanning the entire hall, and any enemy who was invisible, phantom, and even hiding in the eclipse could not escape his search for blood-colored eyes. I didn't expect your dog's nose to be quite sharp. In the middle of the hall, a young woman with a long blonde hair and a linen robes appeared here. She had no weapons in her hands and looked as leisurely as she was in her own home. Raffuno and Norfolk looked at each other. In their eyes, this young mysterious woman is just an ordinary human being, but how is this possible? At this moment, a horrific battle broke out in the bay outside the city. Spacania was not scared by the horrible vow of victory, because the task that the Duke gave him was to destroy the fleet instead of defeating the legend. Strong. Under the command of Spacania, several vampire counts directly exerted a variety of blood resources and no longer sneaked into the body. The sword of the tall mech is powerful, but it is not difficult to dodge when there is alert. Moreover, the vampire is a magical and double repairing profession capable of melee combat. As long as the strengths and weaknesses are avoided, it is not too difficult to involve or even destroy the fleet. So under the influence of several masters of blood resources, the entire bay turned into a sky, and the rain fell from the sky. This horrible blood rain can instantly melt any exposed material, including steel, wood, flesh, and blood. Four Colors Asylum, the Smurfs magicians on the three ships built a magical array at the same time, and jointly displayed a circular master-class protective scammer mask composed of four basic elements over the three ships. The blood rain fluttered and landed over the elemental reticle. Two different energies violently collided. The three protected ships were like the lonely boats in the sea, swaying but standing still, and formed a counterbalance for a time. The trend. After all, the Smurfs magician is only a high-level magician. The four-color shelter magic array on the three ships cannot last for too long, so Natalia in the sky must break the deadlock. The Sword of Victory just now is not a regular attack of the Vow of Victory. This blow consumes a quarter of the energy of the etheric core of the vows, and looks far away from the horizon, ready to escape. The Count of the Vampire, Natalia had to change the way of fighting. The Vow of Victory triumphed back to the back of the mech, a greenish air flow through the mech, the entire vow's victory rushed out, no less than the blood shadow raid of the Vampire Count. The people who saw the scene were stunned, so the huge war machine could burst out of such a rapid degree, which is unreasonable. In fact, this skill is exactly one of the core skills of the monk system brought by the big cloud masters. The true gas burst itself only needs a third-order monk to perform, but it is very difficult to display the skill by the huge vow's victory. Zero and Zyway have studied the subject for a long time, and the ether core has been carried out to some extent. The targeted enhancement and improvement have enhanced the instantaneous elemental explosion, and this skill has been realized on the vow's victory. Natalia and the Vow of Victory directly crossed the sky and rushed to the center of the 8 vampire counts. The next moment the whole mech was rotated high, the horrible sword blade blew up like a hurricane, with a horrible attraction, attract everything around you to the center of the storm. Sharp Storm. Scarpania clenched his fists, which is the legendary skill of all the servants who dreamed of, the most powerful and lethal legendary combat skills. The space affected by the blade storm will greatly reduce the degree of everyone, even the space spell will become very unstable, and in the entire blade storm, endless swords are swept out, each one enough to crush the strongest and hardest substance. This legendary tactic has a reputation in the entire Orient 6th, which is by far the only legendary tactic that has been recognized as the most devastating spell in the range of lethality and attack. It is more than almost all above the legendary combat skills. Although most of the comrades are eager for this legendary battle, and they are training simulations, there are very few servants who can truly master this legendary battle. Natalia has a long way to go before she masters the blade storm, but she has mastered the mountain and sea and satisfies the most essential requirement of the sharp storm, strong stability and focus. The core of the blade storm is the legendary warrior of the high rotation. Without strong stability and focus, the blade storm can only be waved out a few times, and it will soon become invisible and eventually collapse. Natalia in the mech is spinning at a high level, but her mind and consciousness are very clear. The breathing method of mountain and sea is full of strength, the shape is stable and the center is unchanged. The etheric core reopened its fire power, and vowed to win the golden sword of victory. The golden blade storm was out, and all the vampire counts were caught in this horrible storm, even if the blood shadow raid could not help them escape. This storm vortex. can only resist. However, this feeling is so sour, although they are long-lived species, they are vampires, but in front of a knife that is comparable to the legendary attack, it is so embarrassing, the whole body can consume high blood, it is too late to supplement, when the blood can warn, it is when death comes. Death is not terrible, but this powerless helplessness, even if it is full of struggle, can only slow down the feeling of death, but it is a painful punishment and torture. At this moment, Spockania had left all the vampire counts, he sneaked into the sea, as the enemy's legendary powers were attracted to the fleet, this is the best time to start. In Spockania's view, there are 2 magicians on the ship, and the protective spells are also very powerful. It is a hard bone, but the last ship is not too moving. It seems to be weak. Breakthrough. Spockania emerged from the black fog, he has already appeared inside the ship, and then it is the destruction of the Big Bang, a moment of depression in the heart. It's nice to meet you, my friend. I'm having an itchy hand, you just sent it up, it's a very happy thing. In front of Spockania, a middle-aged man looks excited to say, as passionate as a pervert. However, Spockania has sensed a strong radiance in him, the only sacred man who has only the most devout and powerful glory of the Lord, which is the most taboo enemy of all dark forces including vampires. Damn, who are you? Scaligna's stature was once again turned into a fog, and the situation was not good. He wanted to return immediately and bring the news to the Duke. However, the entire cabin was brilliant, and a light enchantment suddenly illumined all the shadows, and returned Spockania, which had already entered the shadow plane, back to the main material plane. You can call me the Silver Messenger, the great morning light of the seat of the Paladin Model. The silver warhammer in the middle-aged man's hand burst into the blazing light, swaying towards Scarpania. Even at the last moment before death, Spockania still cares for his master, the Duke of Nephile. This must be the conspiracy of the glory of the Church, the Marquis of Giovanni must have died in the Lord of Glory. In the hands of the great churches, the dukes must leave Sicily as soon as possible and inform the Prince Nicholas of this important military situation. What Spockania didn't know, however, was that the owner he was worried about had already fallen into a confused battle. Yes, it was a fascination. Under the full opening of the blood of the Duke of Nephile and the Marquis of Ruffuno, not only did this woman not be able to eliminate this woman, but it was finally controlled in the hall, and it was impossible to move. After another blast was still ineffective, the breathless Marquis of Ruffuno finally stopped the unnecessary attack, and the flash of light flashed. He finally hooked the woman and a legendary character in front of him. You are the Lord of the Morning, Ulysses. Upon hearing this sentence, the woman in front of it became a golden radiance, and the holy and radiant light instantly shone the entire hall, like the rising sun, turning half of the city of Catania into a day. Dispel all the horrors brought by the 2 vampires and suppress all dark forces. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 683. The legendary level means that the soul level has reached a very high level, and the will, spirit, reaction speed, and physical strength have been fully strengthened. Most of the dead spells can't kill a legendary powerhouse. And when the legend goes one step further, it enters the sanctuary, and the power of the field condenses on the strong people of the sanctuary, forming a special sacred trace, called the Holy Mark. Every possession of a holy mark means mastering the power of a field, being the master in the field, controlling everything, and having an absolute home advantage. Even if the legendary strongman is struggling in the field of others, the only way is to quickly escape from the field. Then what kind of core strength does the semi-god strong on the sanctuary have? At this moment, the mysterious veil was finally unveiled in front of Zyway. The younger lady of the morning, Ulixia, showed the true power of the semi-god strong, and the power of the light was fully developed. In addition to the light itself, the entire temple, other elements, blood, and even gas were all suppressed and almost extinct. What does this mean? Ulysses has created an artificial ban, and banned all other powers. In addition to the users of the light, the ability of anyone else will be greatly discounted and severely weakened. Zai has carried out in-depth analysis of the source of light and constructed a light rune. He has a clear understanding of the bright field of power displayed by Ulysses. The biggest role of this bright power field is to close, ban, repression, the power of the imperial concubine, the trend of Mount Titian, cannot be violated, unstoppable. At this moment, the Duke of Nephile, the Marquis of Rufino, like the mortal of the avalanche, the tremors and fears from the depths of the soul occupy their brains and thinking. This is not because they are so weak, but they are so weak, but the soul of the Lord of the Morning is suppressed, and the level of the soul is 2 levels higher. There is really no backhand. The two vampires are as if they have fallen into the cold winter, as if they have become dementia, although their inner escape is so strong, their will, their bodies have become so dull, even if they are escapes. Can't do it. The flesh and blood on the surface of the vampire's true ancestors began to collapse, and the blood was instantly suppressed after a moment of collision with the holy light. Their body surface was already covered with layers of holy light, which is the most painful for the vampire's body. Torture and torture, blood energy has been suppressed to the innermost layer of the body, and the festival is defeated and collapsed. The glory, the morning lord, you are destined to fall, this is the tide of the times, you cannot resist. And I will be waiting for you in the abyss of hell. Almost half of the body disappeared in the tide among the holy lights, only the last core of the Marquis of Rufino issued the final curse, and then the next moment, he has completely fallen in the glow of the light, and the soul is in the endless river. Why is the Lord of the Morning, why are you so unwise? The Duke of Nephile is stronger and lasts longer, the darkness is about to sweep the whole world, and you not only do not follow the trend, but also stand up, all the Supreme Master can't let you, and Orient will never have a second glory who will suppress all sentient beings. You will die. In my dictionary, I have never given up the word, Ulysses said firmly in the endless light of the holy light, no fool, you are not the first, nor the last one, I will eventually run out dark, reproduce the light. The Duke of Norfield gave a sigh, no matter how sordid, the Lord of the Morning is the top 10 of the entire Orient world, and he fell into her hands, nowhere to escape. After the sigh, Nephile's body completely disintegrated, and the soul returned to the Styx. At this point, the two legendary strongmen, the vampires, died in the dead. Not only that, Natalia's Bladestorm also wiped out all the vampire counts, and Spacania was also slain by the silver messenger Mograine, and the three families' vampire forces on Sicily were swept away, short. In a short day, the Violets occupied the entire island of Sicily. A close look at the whole process of killing the two vampires by Ulysses in a crushing situation, the pride that Zaiwei originally produced to destroy the Marquis of Giovanni has been blown away by the rain. Legend is just a ticket to participate in the historical trend in the turbulent year. To truly dominate your destiny and even realize your ideals in the turbulent year, you need to master more powerful forces, fields, and sources. After the glory was exhausted, Ulysses also resumed the form of the weekdays. Zaiwei, it seems to have grabbed your part, I am really embarrassed. If it weren't for Ulysses, if Civi wanted to conquer Sicily, he would have to play all the cards, and he would win the most battles, but he could not form such a crushing situation, and it would be impossible to eliminate the three vampires. Not only that, the fall of the three vampires will surely lead to the full counterattack of Prince Nicholas and other vampire families, and it is still the Lord of the Morning to help himself. Sicily has been set, waiting for the Violets to establish the rule and order here. It is the time for Yali and you to land in the kingdom of Italy and board the center of the historical stage. In this scene, you are the only one. The protagonist, including me, is the supporting role. The dragon sleeve and the background board 11-way responded with a smile. With the fall of the three vampires, the entire Sicily was quickly cleared by the Violet. The Arcane Corps entered the capitals of Catania and Palermo. The two warships returned to Violet and will transport some of the city's management and government affairs. Military personnel. After all, Sicily is the largest island in the Golden Sea with an area of more than 80,000 square kilometers. It takes a certain time to fully operate the entire island into its own sphere of influence. However, the most lacking time in the turbulent year is time. The war record has been filmed, and several key battles have holographic videos, which can be slow motion, playback, pause, and focus analysis. Zero brought a good news to Zyway. These battles are planned to be loaded into the Western Warcraft list. Different battles require different permissions to unlock. This is also a way for the Violet students to observe the high-level battles at close range. How it is staged, it will be very helpful for their future growth. Have you seen the battle I just had? Natalia, who had already taken the oath of victory, ran to the front of Zyway. She was panting and looking red, obviously the blade storm just now. Her consumption is also very large. The wonderful battle is very good. I have eliminated the entire 11 vampire counts by myself. This is a brilliant record that I have never done before. Zyway naturally praises the words, not to mention that he did not think of Natalie. So far, Asia has reached the requirement to display the blade storm through the vow of victory. The blade storm is the big killer that every servant dreams of. I didn't expect that. I only showed it out with the strength of the master. It is really a dream-like reality. Natalia was reveling in the past. During the feeling, I finally said with a trace of regret, it's a pity that the energy of the vows has already consumed 70, so it can only support the time when my firepower is half open. Reassured, with my deep exploration and understanding of the etheric elements, the motivation to win the victory will become stronger and stronger. 11-way gently took Natalia's hands and looked at her eyes gently. We will continue to work side by side, along the way. Early the next morning, the Violet and the Smurfs returned to Nanhai Town, bringing inspiring good news to people who had long been looking forward to victory. Sicily all conquered in one day, the three vampires are all fallen. The news is undoubtedly shocking, but it is the horrible vampire ancestors, the legendary ranks of the strong. In any case, this is a brilliant victory, saving the Sicilian people from the cruel vampires who have human beings as blood animals. Violet has finally stepped out of the small island of the Golden Sea, and we are constantly moving forward. Going to a glorious future. This is the official editorial of the Violet Journal homepage, which is the keynote. Many Violets are looking forward to it all, and they are eager to board Sicily to see the newly conquered territory. Therefore, the first batch of government management and garrison personnel recruitment in Sicily was very smooth. After getting the guarantee that they can return to Violet to continue their study life during the vacation, they signed up and entered the Violet after preliminary screening. They will go to Palermo, Catania, turn this into the real territory of Violet. The battle that took place in Sicily can be said to be the most brilliant victory of the Guangming camp since the turbulent years. The vampires lost all three true ancestors and lost them within the sphere of influence. Just because of the consideration of the landing war in the kingdom of Italy, Zyway did not carry out large-scale propaganda. Apart from the Violet side, all this is still top-secret news. At this moment, the entire kingdom of Italy, in addition to the holy city of Vatican, is still in the hands of the Church of the Glorious Lord. The commercial city of Venice fell into the mastery of the spiritual school and the shadow sorcerer. All other cities, towns, and towns are attributed to the vampire's rule. The initial strategy is perfectly achieved. The old Italy Palace in Milan City became the Palace of Prince Nicholas. He directly mastered the most prosperous and most important cities of Milan and Turin, and remained the strongest and leader of all vampires. After completing the conquest of the kingdom of Italy, Prince Nicholas sent a call to the remaining 12 vampire families, hoping that all the vampires would be together in Milan to discuss the next stage of the raiders. However, when the final time of the appointment has passed a magic, there are still 3 seats in the round table. Nofl, Giovanni, and Rafano, why are all late? What happened? A vampire ancestors whispered on the round table, and the princes sitting in the first seat were more unhappy. Is it because I was rushed to the remote little place in Sicily? This is the call of His Royal Highness, they don't come, don't know to find an excuse to go through it, said the Marquis of Cephas. Prince Nicholas stood up and was awe-inspiring. Everyone will jointly display the blood source horizon, Nicholas said, they dare not ignore my call, I am afraid something happened. Blood source vision is a kind of superdistance horizon spell in blood power, which can detect scenes thousands of kilometers away, and even break the camouflage enchantment. Of course, such blood source energy consumption is great, if not the 10 vampire ancestors gathered here, even Prince Nicholas is not willing to play alone. The 10 vampire ancestors have their own blood, and the rich atmosphere is overflowing in the entire palace, with a fascinating and fragrant fragrance. If the mortal is only smelling a trace of this energy will be addicted to it, lose all consciousness and autonomy, and become an eternal blood slave. All the maids and waiters in the palace were shrouded in scattered blood, one after another transformed into a blood slave, losing the will of freedom. However, this is only the gathering stage of the vampire ancestors' blood source vision power. Finally, the blood source of the 10 vampire ancestors turned into a big ball under the control of Prince Nicholas, and then slowly evolved into a mirror. Nicholas took a deep breath, and a red blood sprayed onto the blood-colored mirror. With this blood as the guide, the original chaos of the blood-colored mirror began to become more and more clear, which is the scene of the entire city of Milan. This source of blood is irreparable consumption, and Prince Nicholas apparently paid a certain price. The scenery in the blood-colored mirror is constantly changing, and it is moving all the way to the southwest. The 10 vampire ancestors continue to provide blood energy, and their gaze is also on the mirror surface. Finally, through the golden sea of enamel, the landscape of Sicily has begun to appear in the mirror. What is this strangely labeled warship? The Marquis of Cephas suddenly raised his tone, and it was the 3 violet warships that docked in the Gulf of Catania on the mirror. The Violets who had just sailed from the Violet Island merchants walked down the deck and guided by the Smurfs guards to the town hall and the well-prepared residence. This is not a Norfolk. It is an accident, Prince Nicholas said with a sad face. The blood source has scouted the entire city of Catania, which has undoubtedly become a stronghold of humanity. In an underground cage, a large number of vampires ranging from medium to high, have been held for 3 consecutive days. No blood sucking, one by one. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 684. Not only Catania, but also Palermo. The 3 of them lost the entire Sicily, and why did they not return the military? Duke Raysam said indignantly. I'm afraid they don't want to, but they have no chance. Prince Nicholas interrupted the blood source horizon, they are not suppressed, they have already fallen. This is impossible. With the strength of the Duke of Nafile, who can suppress or destroy the 3 blood ancestors? I can't think of it unless. The Marquis of Cephas suddenly burst into tears, he whispered, is the Church of the Glorious Lord. Glorious power has great restraint on the abyss demons, non-death spirits, and vampires. The same rank can be said to have the advantage, which is why the former glorious church can suppress the entire Orient world and firmly suppress all the dark forces. The biggest reason. The disappearance of the vampire ancestors of the 3 legendary ranks made the atmosphere in the palace instantly less pleasant, although now sitting in the entire Italy kingdom, occupying a bustling and prosperous place in the world of Orient, but everyone's heart it is not so stable, because of the existence of the Holy City Vatican and the Church of the Glorious Lord. Prince Nicholas has been silent for a long time, This may be a conspiracy of the church, or it may be a trap that has long been set. The disappearance of the three vampires, unless the Church of the Glorious Church dispatches the most powerful sanctuary, consumes them. The only remaining power, otherwise it will never be possible, and other forces are even more impossible. We can't act rashly until everything is investigated. After all, the dark power was suppressed by the Church of the Glorious Lord for 2000 years. What a long time, for everyone who has had a painful memory. Prince, the Church of the Glorious Lord is the enemy of our entire dark parliament. At the beginning of the capital of the dead, everyone joined forces to eliminate the entire Church of the Glorious Lord. Now most of them are shrinking in the Franconian plain, but there is also a holy city in the country of our blood family. Why not summon the great people of all ethnic groups and flatten the holy city one by one? Even if we don't get the city, it's better than the whole day. The Marquis of Cephos proposed a suggestion. The territory of the Cephos family can be said to be the first line facing the holy city Vatican. He cannot sleep peacefully every night. How do you see them? Prince Nicholas chose to listen to everyone's opinions. It's still a fight, even if you try it out. Let's put a so-called holy city around us. We are not at ease. Our family still has a lot of good young people left in the small plain, for fear of being taught by the church. One pot is over, said the Duke of Raysam. The other vampire ancestors nodded, and everyone had the feeling of sitting on a volcano that was about to be sprayed at any time. Prince Nicholas thought for a long time and slowly said, when the Dark Parliament was founded, few people could expect the situation to be as smooth as it is now. The Rhineland and the Kingdom of Italy have already sought out for the Holy Norman Empire and the Kingdom of France. The next offensive is also being planned. At present, Bards and the Demon Monarch must hope to quickly conquer the two most powerful empire of mankind, and our blood family is pressed against the volcano, the Church of the Glorious Lord. It has been brilliant for 2000 years, they will never have any movements, and our situation is indeed very subtle. The words of Prince Nicholas made the vampires really face each other. The Dark Council is undoubtedly the main force of the Abyss Demon and the Undead Spirit. However, they chose to attack the Holy Norman Empire and France first. Naturally, it is impossible to challenge the siege at this time. The main church, the tyrannical master, really a guy with ulterior motives, is really against our noble blood family. Another Nicholas Marquis was indignant. The Dark Council is just a loose alliance. Our blood family must have their own plans for the future. This is also the original intention of me to convene everyone to hold this meeting. Prince Nicholas looked at everyone who was doing. We have already completed our initial goals. Occupy the Kingdom of Italy, in addition to the commercial city of Venice. What should I do next? Grazing blood, strengthen the strength. The population of the Kingdom of Italy is more than 20 million. This is a very rich source of blood energy, which can greatly increase the strength of our ethnic groups and individuals. With sufficient blood supply, we can train a large number of high-ranking vampires, the vampire count of the masters, and even our blood ancestors, and can go further and develop a more powerful blood source. The Duke of Rasham proposed the most pertinent and most stable solution. We must find faithful allies. If the Mind Mage is not colluding with the Shadow Sorcerer, they are not qualified for Venice. We must not face the glory of the Lord's Parliament alone, the Marquis of Cephos screamed at the table. Who is trustworthy, said the Marquis of Nisso, the abyssal devil is not the native species of our world. It is not the death spirit that manipulates the soul and the body. It is even more terrible than us. Only the dark elves look noble and elegant. All are feminist madmen. In their eyes, we are just low-lying men, and they are not respected at all. The present age has been called the turbulent year by mankind, not only for the turmoil of the Bright Camp, but also for the turmoil of the entire Orient world. In fact, after the glory of the Lord left, the entire Orient lost. The most powerful gods, whether they are the abyss demons or the undead kings, including the spiders, they are seeking the possibility of real God. Once they have achieved the true God, then we can only succumb to the people and kill them, Nicholas the prince said with a sad face. So, prince, what should we do? The Marquis of Cephos quickly picked up. Everyone knows that the Marquis of Cephos is the megaphone and the best running dog of His Royal Highness, so they are silent. Our noble blood family must also establish a church of faith. Use faith to unite the hearts of the people and create a road to the gods. Prince Nicholas finally threw an important issue, which is why he called the 13 true ancestors. Reason. A true ancestors, a church must have a true God, even if it is a demigod. The 9 true ancestors and Prince Nicholas have a large gap. It is obviously impossible to compete for this position. His Royal Highness, have you reached the stage where you can gather your faith, gather your divine power and even ignite the fire, said the Duke of Rasham, who trembled and broke the silence. Yes, in the process of conquering the kingdom of Italy, I finally broke through the last layer of insight and understood the mystery of the demigod. Prince Nicholas revealed a mysterious smile. P.S. Today's update has not been written yet. I am very sorry, I will replace it after I finish. This is impossible. With the strength of the Duke of Nephile, who can suppress or destroy the 3 blood ancestors? I can't think of it unless. The Marquis of Cephos suddenly burst into tears. He whispered, "Is the Church of the Glorious Lord. Glorious power has great restraint on the abyss demons, non-death spirits, and vampires. The same rank can be said to have the advantage, which is why the former glorious church can suppress the entire Orient world and firmly suppress all the dark forces. The biggest reason. The disappearance of the vampire ancestors of the 3 legendary ranks made the atmosphere in the palace instantly less pleasant, although now sitting in the entire Italy kingdom, occupying a bustling and prosperous place in the world of Orient, but everyone's heart it is not so stable, because of the existence of the Holy City Vatican and the Church of the Glorious Lord. Prince Nicholas has been silent for a long time. This may be a conspiracy of the Church, or it may be a trap that has long been set. The disappearance of the 3 vampires, unless the Church of the Glorious Church dispatches the most powerful sanctuary, consumes them. The only remaining power, otherwise it will never be possible, and other forces are even more impossible. We can't act rashly until everything is investigated. After all, the dark power was suppressed by the Church of the Glorious Lord for 2000 years. What a long time, for everyone who has had a painful memory. Prince, the Church of the Glorious Lord is the enemy of our entire dark parliament. At the beginning of the capital of the dead, everyone joined forces to eliminate the entire Church of the Glorious Lord. Now most of them are shrinking in the Franconian plain, but there is also a holy city in the country of our blood family. Why not summon the great people of all ethnic groups and flatten the holy city one by one? Even if we don't get the city, it's better than the whole day. The Marquis of Cephos proposed a suggestion. The territory of the Cephos family can be said to be the first line facing the Holy City Vatican. He cannot sleep peacefully every night. How do you see them? Prince Nicholas chose to listen to everyone's opinions. It's still a fight, even if you try it out. Let's put a so-called holy city around us. We are not at ease. Our family still has a lot of good young people left in the small plain, for fear of being taught by the church. One pot is over, said the Duke of Rasham. The other vampire ancestors nodded, and everyone had the feeling of sitting on a volcano that was about to be sprayed at any time. Prince Nicholas thought for a long time and slowly said, when the Dark Parliament was founded, few people could expect the situation to be as smooth as it is now. The Rhineland and the Kingdom of Italy have already sought out for the Holy Norman Empire and the Kingdom of France. The next offensive is also being planned. At present, Bards and the Demon Monarch must hope to quickly conquer the 2 most powerful empire of mankind, and our blood family is pressed against the volcano, the Church of the Glorious Lord. It has been brilliant for 2000 years, they will never have any movements, and our situation is indeed very subtle. The words of Prince Nicholas made the vampires really face each other. The Dark Council is undoubtedly the main force of the Abyss Demon and the undead spirit. However, they chose to attack the Holy Norman Empire and France first. Naturally, it is impossible to challenge the siege at this time. The main church, the tyrannical master, really a guy with ulterior motives, is really against our noble blood family. Another Nicholas Marquis was indignant. The Dark Council is just a loose alliance. Our blood family must have their own plans for the future. This is also the original intention of me to convene everyone to hold this meeting. Prince Nicholas looked at everyone who was doing. We have already completed our initial goals. Occupy the kingdom of Italy, in addition to the commercial city of Venice. What should I do next? Grazing blood, strengthen the strength. The population of the kingdom of Italy is more than 20 million. This is a very rich source of blood energy, which can greatly increase the strength of our ethnic groups and individuals. With sufficient blood supply, we can train a large number of high-ranking vampires, the vampire count of the masters, and even our blood ancestors, and can go further and develop a more powerful blood source. The Duke of Rasham proposed the most pertinent and most stable solution. We must find loyal allies. If the Mind Mage is not colluding with the Shadow Sorcerer, they are not qualified to occupy Venice. We must not face the glory of the main council, the Marquis shouted at the table. Who is trustworthy, said the Marquis of Nisso. The Abyssal Devil is not the native species of our world. It is not the death spirit that manipulates the soul and the body. It is even more terrible than us. Only the Dark Elves look noble and elegant. All are feminist madmen. In their eyes, we are just low-lying men, and they are not respected at all. The present age has been called the turbulent year by mankind, not only for the turmoil of the Bright Camp, but also for the turmoil of the entire Orient world. In fact, after the glory of the Lord left, the entire Orient lost. The most powerful gods, whether they are the Abyss demons or the undead kings, including the spiders, they are seeking the possibility of real God. Once they have achieved the true God, then we can only succumb to the people and kill them, Nicholas the Prince said with a sad face. So, Prince, what should we do? The Marquis of Cephos quickly picked up. Everyone knows that the Marquis of Cephos is the megaphone and the best running dog of His Royal Highness, so they are silent. Our noble blood family must also establish a church of faith. Use faith to unite the hearts of the people and create a road to the gods. Prince Nicholas finally threw an important issue, which is why he called the 13 true ancestors. Reason. A true ancestors, a church must have a true God, even if it is a demigod. The 9 true ancestors and Prince Nicholas have a large gap. It is obviously impossible to compete for this position. His Royal Highness, have you reached the stage where you can gather your faith, gather your divine power and even ignite the fire, said the Duke of Rasham, who trembled and broke the silence. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 685. So what is the great undead king? How should we deal with this situation? The necromancer named Lafite quickly asked with concern. Reassure, his fiefdom is in the kingdom of Italy, the home of the Church of the Glorious Lord. I don't believe that Pope Benton will sit on Nicholas to harvest the faith, and there will be a good show to watch, Diston, but this information also reminds me that the battle for the belief in the gods has begun. We must speed up. The transformation of the Death Knight has been basically completed. I have added a handful of 5,000 in my hand. The undead army formed by the Death Knight is the time to start preparing for the second undead scourge. I heard that the King of France is a sanctuary strongman, and in parley, there is also a change master called the Fifth Law. I am afraid that this country will not be as easy to conquer as the Rhine. Lafite is the loyal dog in front of the undead king, who plays the role of trying to figure out death, killing, conquering. The process is not important. I only care about death. The era of the deceased must be accompanied by the birth of countless skeletons and the mourning of the soul. The undead King Bades looked at the distant west, the dark sky expand again. This time the country we want to conquer is the Kingdom of France. The secret blood church. These big bats are really funny. In the city of Catania, the younger lady of the morning, Elysian, laughed and said, he is also qualified. But he just touched the threshold of the half-god. He is right, faith and gods know nothing about it. It's not to build churches and beliefs, Natalia asked curiously. The beliefs of human beings and other intelligent life are not as pure as imagined. When praying or even pilgrimage, there will still be a variety of selfish distractions. This kind of distracting belief will greatly affect the demigod itself. If it accumulates, in the end, it is likely to cause the demigration of the demigod's personality, which is also a great obstacle and burden for the achievement of the true God. Every demigod must carefully select his own believers, instead of arbitrarily expanding the beliefs, but also have enough standards to exempt or to reject distractions, otherwise you will lose yourself even if you can gather your faith. It is impossible to ignite the fire and succeed in closing the gods, Ulixia explained in detail, as the whole of the Ulant world, except for Ms Yenu and the glory of the Lord, the third is to establish the believer of the church, and her words naturally have a very high degree of credibility. I didn't expect the vampire to stand still, completely ignoring the fall of Sicily. Zaiwei shook his head gently. What exactly is Nicholas scribbling about? The disappearance of the 3 vampires is not a serious thing. Perhaps they counted the death of the vampire's true ancestors in the Church of the Glorious Lord, Natalia suddenly said with a smile. This sentence does not even believe her own. However, Ulysses and Zaiwei look at each other. Only this seemingly absurd reason can explain why the current situation will appear. Principal Benton 18 has been hiding in the depths of St. Peter's Cathedral. I can't know his move now. Maybe this is an opportunity. Ulixia gently raised her eyebrows. Your morning churches can be secretly held in Catania and Palermo for various religious activities. Of course, they must also be replaced with the traditional costumes of the Church of the Glorious Lord. Zaiwei made a suggestion. The pastors and paladins of the morning church were all believers of the Glorious Lord until they were 99 years old, so they can simulate all of this very real enough to deceive the vampire. Then our land of the Itanli kingdom will be delayed for some time, Ulixia said with some regrets. There are 2 major forces in the kingdom of Itanli, the Church of the Glorious Lord and the Church of the Blood of the Vampire. This is a rare opportunity to break the bottleneck. We must also modify the original plan because of the potential Sylvester paused, not to mention that Sicily has just been won by us. This island of 100,000 square kilometers lives on more than 1 million people. Violet is still the first time to operate such a large area. It will take some time. Able to maintain stable order and development. Well, then let's do this first. I hope to deepen the misunderstanding between the Church of the Glorious Lord and the Church of the Blood, and there is a more favorable situation. Ulysses agreed with the proposal of Zaiwei and decided to suspend the landing of Itanli. War. In this case, she chose to recruit more Don from Pili and began preparing for the next stage. On the outskirts of Catania, the sky at the end of January is already cold and chilly. Although the broken sun has become faint, it still provides light and heat, which makes the temperature of the cold rise a little. On a flat grass, a large group of people gathered around and pointed at the sky as if they saw something very interesting. Look, it's a magical thing that can carry ordinary people into the sky. Very interesting. The onlookers pointed to a metal luster that was parked not far from the ground and had 2 wheels and huge. The wings farsightedness is like a flat bird of a big bird. Really? Even ordinary people can fly to the sky, someone said incredulously. You should know that although the 3-loop spell has a flight, you can let the caster fly in the sky, but this must also be a middle-level magician to play, and can only be effective for himself. Not only that, I have seen the performance of this magical object just now. It flies very fast in the sky. It will lose its trace in a blink of an eye, faster than the magician I have ever seen. Much more, the first 10-year-old boy who spoke with his hands said with excitement. Really? This big guy looks heavy and can fly. He spoke to a middle-aged man about 30 or 40 years old, some of whom he didn't believe. Look, there is a bold passenger who is invited to board the plane. Wow, still a noble lady. The young boy suddenly saw a beautiful young woman dressed in costume was invited to get close to this magical object. Miss Julie, this magical object is the one I designed and assembled. I named it the Flying Man. I have completed more than 30 flight tests and its safety is trustworthy. Violet Fraser, the school star of tomorrow, dressed in a safari, said elegantly to his companion, under the accident, I can bring the beautiful lady back with no harm. Miss Julie is the youngest and most beautiful lady of the city of Catania. After Violet ruled the city and saved their entire family from the vampire, Miss Julie's father, Viscount Edward, chose to vote for Violet's for the first time. Fraser, I believe in you, after all, you are the famous star of the future of Violet Academy. Miss Julie showed a shy smile, and finally she was on the bench with the help of Fraser. The aircraft was named Flying. Fraser also jumped into the cockpit and closed the door. He put on windproof glasses and started debugging the aircraft. Fraser published a paper entitled Wind Element and Aerodynamics Research in the Journal of Violet, earning him a full 100 arcane points, and with this paper became the first among the students of Violet College. The Samsung Arcane division, so his Violet star is even bigger. Today's update has not been completed, I will replace it when I finish writing. Thank you for your support and understanding. So what is the great undead king? How should we deal with this situation? The necromancer named Lafite quickly asked with concern. Reassure, his fiefdom is in the kingdom of Italy, the home of the Church of the Glorious Lord. I don't believe that Pope Benton will sit on Nicholas to harvest the faith, and there will be a good show to watch, Diston, but this information also reminds me that the battle for the belief in the gods has begun. We must speed up. The transformation of the Death Knight has been basically completed. I have added a handful of 5,000 in my hand. The undead army formed by the Death Knight is the time to start preparing for the second undead scourge. I heard that the King of France is a sanctuary strongman, and in parley, there is also a change master called the Fifth Law. I am afraid that this country will not be as easy to conquer as the Rhine. Lafite is the loyal dog in front of the undead king, who plays the role of trying to figure out death, killing, conquering. The process is not important. I only care about death. The era of the deceased must be accompanied by the birth of countless skeletons and the mourning of the soul. The undead king Bades looked at the distant west, the dark sky expand again. This time the country we want to conquer is the Kingdom of France. The Secret Blood Church. These big bats are really funny. In the city of Catania, the younger lady of the morning, Elysian, laughed and said, he is also qualified. But he just touched the threshold of the half-god. He is right, faith and gods know nothing about it. It's not to build churches and beliefs, Natalia asked curiously. The beliefs of human beings and other intelligent life are not as pure as imagined. When praying or even pilgrimage, there will still be a variety of selfish distractions. This kind of distracting belief will greatly affect the demigod itself. If it accumulates, in the end, it is likely to cause the demigration of the demigod's personality, which is also a great obstacle and burden for the achievement of the true God. Every demigod must carefully select his own believers, instead of arbitrarily expanding the beliefs, but also have enough standards to exempt or to reject distractions, otherwise you will lose yourself even if you can gather your faith. It is impossible to ignite the fire and succeed in closing the gods, Ulixia explained in detail, as the whole of the Ulant world, except for Ms Yenu and the glory of the Lord, the third is to establish the believer of the church, and her words naturally have a very high degree of credibility. I didn't expect the vampire to stand still, completely ignoring the fall of Sicily. Zaiwei shook his head gently. What exactly is Nicholas scripting about? The disappearance of the 3 vampires is not a serious thing. Perhaps they counted the death of the vampire's true ancestors in the Church of the Glorious Lord. Natalia suddenly said with a smile. This sentence does not even believe her own. However, Ulysses and Zaiwei look at each other. Only the seemingly absurd reason can explain why the current situation will appear. Principal Benton 18 has been hiding in the depths of St. Peter's Cathedral. I can't know his move now. Maybe this is an opportunity. Ulysses gently raised her eyebrows. Your morning churches can be secretly held in Catania and Palermo for various religious activities. Of course, they must also be replaced with the traditional costumes of the Church of the Glorious Lord. Zaiwei made a suggestion. The pastors and paladins of the morning church were all believers of the Glorious Lord until so they can simulate all of this very real enough to deceive the vampire. Then our land of the Italy kingdom will be delayed for some time, Ulysses said with some regrets. There are two major forces in the kingdom of Italy, the Church of the Glorious Lord and the Church of the Blood of the Vampire. This is a rare opportunity to break the bottleneck. We must also modify the original plan because of the potential Sylvester paused, not to mention that Sicily has just been won by us. This island of 100,000 square kilometers lives on more than 1 million people. Violet is still the first time to operate such a large area. It will take some time. Able to maintain stable order and development. Well, then let's do this first. I hope to deepen the misunderstanding between the Church of the Glorious Lord and the Church of the Blood, and there is a more favorable situation. Ulysses agreed with the proposal of Zaiwei and decided to suspend the landing of Italy. War. In this case, she chose to recruit more Dawn from Pili and began preparing for the next stage. On the outskirts of Catania, the sky at the end of January is already cold and chilly. Although the broken sun has become faint, it still provides light and heat, which makes the temperature of the cold rise a little. On a flat grass, a large group of people gathered around and pointed at the sky as if they saw something very interesting. Look, it's a magical thing that can carry ordinary people into the sky. Very interesting. The onlookers pointed to a metal luster that was parked not far from the ground and had two wheels and huge. The wings farsightedness is like a flat bird of a big bird. Really? Even ordinary people can fly to the sky, someone said incredulously. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 686. The hard-growing twigs finally bloomed brightly, and Zaiwei's heart was very gratified. For Zaiwei, who is a stranger, Violet is his home and his concern. Although Zaiwei now has little time to teach the students of Violet, he will update at least some simple micro-courses, small experiments, and spelling techniques in the Silver's spell list every week. Every Violet student can watch directly. This series of micro-courses is very popular. Almost just uploading cloth, there will be very high reading and participation. Almost all students, including teachers, are not willing to miss the guidance of President Zaiwei. The elemental inscription system constructed by Zaiwei is the most important and largest magic school in the whole of Violet. Over 80% of the Violet magicians have chosen the major elemental school. Because of this, the students of Violet have respect and admiration for Zaiwei, but they are not too alienated and strange to him. Moreover, when the catastrophe is in the catastrophe, the president of Zaiwei screams and screams against the catastrophe of the world. The entire Violet and the great achievements of the 6 islands are seen by every Violet. Tree's research on aircraft may be based on hobbies, but this is clearly a very promising, but not difficult to achieve branch. Although Zaiwei has been able to do this step long ago, with his current status, it is impossible for one person to take all the theory, practice, and design all over. He hopes that the Violet and the Arcanists can think independently. And the spirit of research experiments. Every new arcane master is promoted by a valuable arcane thesis. Under the Arcane Review Committee, Zaiwei intends to set up an arcane promotion practice department to specifically guarantee and promote those that are more practical. The value of the arcane thesis directly links the arcane theory with the civilization exhibition, generating a lot of economic value and other values. Trees and his flying are undoubtedly a very good subject, which will also open other archons or magicians to make Violet's exhibition a step faster. But now, Zai is not only the Lord of Violet. His territory has not only increased the 6 islands, but also added the largest island in the Golden Sea, Sicily. Now, as the Lord of Sicily, Zai is thinking about good governance. The first of these is to repair the bridge. Magic is the first productive force. This sentence is called the truth in the Orient. The magicians of the Violet master the elemental inscription system, especially after the in-depth study of the inscriptions on the earth elements. The mastery of the earth elements is profound. In the construction of the new 6 islands, it played a huge role, and in a short time, a large number of roads, functional buildings, and houses were built according to the design drawings. Now, these powerful magic construction teams have come to Catania and Palermo with the Violet. A wide and smooth road connecting the 2 cities of Sicily is being constructed separately from the 2 cities, very fast. Extended and connected in about half a month. The roads laid by the magician are flat, sturdy, and not easily deformed. They are all composed of gray-white stone mixed with a dark blue magic additive. They can prevent corrosion and reduce daily wear. The effect is no less than that of the world road. The vehicle, which is also popular, has quickly become popular in Sicily. After several successive improvements, the cost and sales price of the Windmobile are now very low, and it can be used for half a year for ordinary adults. The degree to which 1 year's income is bought. And those small aristocrats, businessmen, gentlemen, and even professionals can buy a car without heartache, riding fast and steady on the newly built flat road, very popular. The roads and buildings that have been in disrepair in the city are also included in the renovation plan. They will be rebuilt in batches within half a year, and large areas of slums will be demolished. These poor people will collectively move into high-rise dormitory buildings, although it's small, but it's far better than the houses they've been so short that they can't shelter from the wind and rain. At the same time, the various garments produced by the Violet Garment Factory began to be dumped throughout Sicily. These garments are handsome, warm, and wear-resistant, and the price is not extravagant. It is also very popular among the general public. With the harvest of the Smurfs in the morning, the food reserves of Zai have been very rich, so he took out a small portion and supplied the people on the island of Sicily at a low price, alleviating the recent rise in the war. Food price. The 4 peoples are most concerned about the most needed aspects, and both Zai and Violet have made great improvements and contributions, which has made Zai, the new Lord of Sicily, from aristocratic to ordinary in a very short time. With the support of the villagers and even the poor and slaves, the foundation of the rule quickly stabilized. After receiving the instructions of Eulizia, some members of the morning church replaced the Protestant robe, put on the glorious robe of the past, and began secret prayers in some churches in Catania and Palermo. And the party, these conditions were quickly scouted by the secret agent sent by Prince Nicholas, which also confirmed his guess. This time Prince Nicholas even dared not to act rashly, but to bury his secret blood church, and at the same time began to secretly seek a more reliable ally, secretly raising a big move to the Church of the Glorious Lord. 3 months, after up to 3 months, no matter how the form changes, the Arcane Core and I will follow you up against the vampire and board the kingdom of Italy. Zai was a little embarrassed. Eurycia made a promise. After all, she has now taken Sicily, but Ulixia has nothing. Although the strength of the Arcane Core is 10 times that of the Knights of the Dawn, the Lord of the Dawn is a semi-god with great fighting power, and its importance cannot be overestimated. I believe in your ethics, Zai. You have given me too much help and don't ask for a return. Ulixia didn't look very anxious. I am looking forward to seeing the next glory, the change of the Lord's Church. If I am a pope, I can't tolerate the Church of the Secret Blood to expand the spread of faith. The kingdom of Italy under the rule of vampires is not a piece of iron. The changes here are easily detected by the forces of the parties. As the undead king Bade's guest, the Church of the Blood grew up with an amazing degree, not just all. The vampires joined him and believed in the blood of the Lord Nicholas. Even the people of Italy, who were under the rule, began to deliver their faith to the Lord of the Blood, hoping to become a noble, handsome, and long-lived blood race. These smart people who actively moved closer and delivered their faith quickly got rid of the tragic fate of the blood slaves. They began to assist the vampires in managing the city. The best or the most rewarding people were even given the blood of the blood family and became real vampire. With the existence of these examples, plus the blood race is the future direction of human evolution, after the glory of the Lord has left, the Lord of the Blood will become the asylum seeker of all human beings. The vast original devout glory of the believers converted to the Lord of the Blood, the entire secret blood church is really snowballing, every day in the big exhibition, the great leap forward. If Oiric's intelligence is true, Pope Benton XVIII really jumped to the semi-god above the sanctuary, so ambitious, he could never endure the believers belonging to the Church of the Glorious Lord being drawn into such a large area. The Church of the Secret Blood, after all, he is the successor to the glory of the Lord, these believers should have contributed to his faith. So now, Ulixia is holding an optimistic attitude and looking at the holy city of Vatican in the far north. Pope Benton XVIII, who has shaken the basics, can't sit still. In fact, as Oiric had expected, Benton's 18th, who had been in the depths of St. Peter's Cathedral and mastered the power of God while planning how to transform the Church of the Glorious Lord, finally couldn't sit still, when he got the Lord of Glory. After the power of the gods, he was pleasantly surprised. Although the glory of the Lord has left, he can still get a trace of faith from the believers of the devout faith. This made him not only weak but also weakened. However, the establishment of the Church of the Secret Blood is a very dangerous event. It is necessary to know that with the departure of the glorious Lord and the emergence of the Holocaust, the entire glorious Lord's faith and the Orient Grand Six are all large-scale collapses. Since God does not save people, who believes in God? So now believers who believe in the Lord of Glory are no longer one and not very religious. Most of these believers are gathered in the kingdom of Eden, because in fact the Church of the Glorious Lord protects the humans here and enjoys it. A peacetime of 2,000 years. The blood of the Lord Nicholas, this is the battle of faith, I am not dead with you. Pope Benton XVIII finally stood up straight, and walked out from the secret room of St. Peter's Basilica. When he stood in the sun again, even the faint catastrophe of the faint yellow seems to be much brighter. On the stairs of the cathedral, almost all the high rises of the church are divided into two rows, one by one standing quietly, welcoming the new future. God of light. From today, I am the Lord of the Sun, infinity. Although the Father has left Orient, I will inherit his will and shelter all human beings. When the blazing sun shines again on the whole land, it is my glory. Going to the throne, when the sun is achieved, infinity finally changed his real name. From this moment on, he is no longer Pope Benton XVIII, but the Lord of the Sun, the future Sun God. There are countless stars in the entire Orient world, but there is only one sun and one moon. Silver Moon Lady Elena is the moon is her incarnation, and from this moment, infinity does not hesitate to declare that his future pursuit is the achievement of the Sun God. Moreover, his words also revealed a lot of meanings. First, he still acknowledged the status of the Father, the glory of the Lord. After the promotion of the demigod, infinity knew that he could penetrate the cosmic wall system. In the hundreds of millions of worlds, how powerful is the glory of the Supreme God? Therefore, he unknowingly hangs the title of the Father's successor. Sheltering all human beings means that the entire 3 billion people of the world of Orient can be believers in the Lord of the Sun, and infinity's appetite is terrible. However, this is not that he is too arrogant. During the nearly 1 month meditation, he repeatedly thought about it and finally confirmed one thing, that is, only let the former glorious lords regain their former devout faith. This is the only way to increase your faith the fastest. To this end, Infinity must raise the flag of war, challenge the Dark Council, and shelter those who are desperate in the face of the dark frenzy, so that they can return to the Lord's embrace. After all, the Lord of Glory has only passed for more than 40 days. Everything is still worth it. This also means that the sacred retreat and the strategy of struggling with Francon are outdated, and now everything has to change. The great Lord of the Sun, we pray for prayer, faithful to you, your will on the ground, as in the sky. All the cardinals, paladins, high-ranking priests crouched to the ground. Toward this his former pope, the new owner of the sun, delivered his faith. Infinity nodded with satisfaction, and the 90% of the top of the Church of the Glorious Lord appeared in front of him. What does this mean? It means that more people are optimistic about him, not the Lord of the Morning, and choose to bet on his side. Those who did not appear, naturally, have already traveled to Pili to vote for the Lord of the Morning and the Church of the Morning. At this point, the Church of the Glorious Lord has completely become the past. This is the most powerful and powerful force in the world of the Orient world. The first force of the 2000 years of power is divided into two. The Lord of the Sun, Infinity, is divided into 80% of the heritage, and the Morning Sun Lord Elysia is only divided into 20%. The vampire Nicholas established the Church of the Secret Blood. This is a false religion. The people of the Kingdom of Italy are being tortured by aliens. We must attack, crusade the vampires and save the people in suffering. We will use warmth to bring them back to faith. Clear the line with the vampire. Infinity, the owner of the sun, directly announced the most urgent and most important thing to do. I have no objection, 6 cardinals agreed. The remnant knights can attack at any time. The head of the former glorious knights, the sanctuary strongman Maldini with the mouth. Infinity's Lord Infinity nodded with satisfaction. This time, I have to go out in person. Nicholas is not worthy of the title of the Lord of the Blood. He and his secret blood church are the first enemy of me, must be eliminated as soon as possible. To be continued. Arcane Age author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 687. The sacred calendar in 1788 is a very important era in the history of the European Union. In the eyes of later historians, this is a super-rich treasure that has been enriched to the extreme. Just look for a perspective and a force to dig lightly. It is the research topic of value. In February 1788, the sacred calendar known as the beginning of the turmoil, Infinity, the Lord of the Sun, appeared on the mainland of Ireland as the heir to the glory, and integrated the power of the majority of the original glory. This is undoubtedly a shock. Human events. Many desperate people seem to have seen the light and hope again. The great Lord of the Sun, Infinity, appeared in St. Peter's Square in front of the holy city of St. Peter's Basilica, which is the largest square in the whole of the world. Can accommodate 500,000 people. The construction of this square lasted for 11 years. There is a stone column around the square. The column is engraved with the glorious Lord Church. For 1,000 years, a saint, a sanctuary, and a legendary strongman, a total of 140. At the very center of the square stands an obelisk carved from a super stone pillar transported from the distant Uffique mainland, and the top is carved into a bust of the Lord of the Father. Those who are not qualified to enter the interior of St. Peter's Cathedral often come to St. Peter's Basilica at the time of the Mass and hold large-scale prayers. Here, Infinity, the Lord of the Sun, gave a speech and showed sacredness, which made more than 300,000 original glory believers pray for prayer, delivered the faith to him, and became a believer in the Lord of the Sun. The power organs and main institutions of the original glorious church have changed their faces and peacefully evolved into the institution of the Lord's Church. Apart from the disappearance of a few large figures, other cardinals, high-ranking paladins, and other big figures have once again appeared in front of everyone. Everyone looks ruddy, with a smile, seems to be full of confidence in the future. The appearance of infinity, the Lord of the Sun, is tantamount to a super shock wave, which instantly shocked the entire forces of the entire Orient world. The original stage of the bones and the endless abyss have been launched, and the next stage of the campaign has been suspended. To know that the influence of the glorious Lord on the entire Orient world is too far-reaching, if many people regard Nicholas, the blood-stained Lord, as a joke, but no one dares to look down on infinity, the Lord of the Sun. If other major forces are still on the sidelines, then the blood-stained Nicholas and his vampires are like ants on the stove, and the rushing group has turned. After the speech in St. Peter's Square, Infinity ordered that the three major institutions of the Episcopal Regiment, the Remnant Knights, and the Inquisition were simultaneously fine-tuned, starting from the Holy City of Vatican and heading straight to the capital of the Kingdom of Italy under the rule of Nicholas. Milan. In the highest temple of the secret blood church newly established in Milan, Nicholas, the blood-stained Lord, faced a pool of unfathomable red blood in front of him, with a look of irritability. In the red blood pool, two different images gradually emerged. One of the deadly and powerful faces, a charming and enchanting noble and glamorous, is the undead King Bades and the painful Queen Mesti. The Church of the Glorious Lord has always been the biggest enemy of our Dark Parliament for 2,000 years. Now, a church called the Lord of the Sun has stood up on the body of the giant. Pope Benton XVIII was promoted to a demigod. He got the support of almost all the top. Nicholas said coldly, "We must unite at this important moment and destroy the Church of the Lord of the Sun in the first place, otherwise let him harvest the faith and be the first in the future, then everything we get will be lost again, and I am afraid we will never have such a good chance again." Lord of the Sun, Pope Benton XVIII, before him is just a legend, he can never be the first to seal God. Nicholas, relax, although the Holy See has several sanctuaries, but lost the glory of the Lord, the power of the gods, they are no longer a sanctuary. I do not believe that infinity can provide enough power for these sacred powerhouses. The undead King Bades as the old enemy of the Church of the Glorious Lord, he has been for almost half of his life. In the battle with the Church of the Glorious Lord, there have been 3 defeats but 3 rises. The understanding of the Church of the Glorious Lord is even above the many popes. But after the Lord of Glory has left, the Holy Land of the Holy See has not yet worked out. They have at least one battle, Nicholas said coldly, "I can't be a demigod and 4 sanctuaries opponent." The Lord of the Great Blood, do you have a secret blood church? If you are not eager to spread your faith, I am afraid that this old turtle of Benton XVIII will continue to squat. In fact, your contribution is still very big. The painful Queen, Mesti, smirked with a single hand. My time is running out. The Holy See army is full of momentum and is heading towards Milan all the way. If you don't shoot again, after a quarter of an hour, I have to evacuate. Nicholas looked firm and said, "The blood family can never be alone the power to counter the Holy See." After the undead King Bades was silent for a moment, he put out a finger. "Once, Nicholas, as a member of the Dark Council, the Parliament will only help you unconditionally this time. After all, the Kingdom of Italy is your sphere of influence. And our enemies are still very strong. One time is enough. As long as I can consume the brilliance of the remains of the Holy See, I have no fear of confronting the so-called Lord of the Sun," Prince Nicholas said proudly. "Infinity, the Lord of the Sun? Ha ha ha, it's just a joke." Nicholas is a senior sanctuary who is a new semi-god, and his understanding of the road to promotion is far more profound than that of ordinary people. The span from legend to demigod is almost a Scorpio, even if there is a grace left by the glorious Lord. Infinity is also unlikely to be easily promoted to the demigod. This can be seen from the fact that he has been huddled in St. Peter's Cathedral for so long. The red blood pool began to sway slowly, a small vortex was formed in it, and then it became bigger and brighter. Suddenly, a dark green crystal flew out of it. "Nicholas, you need to establish a temporary plane channel. The energy of the channel will be paid by you. The endless abyss will have 1 to 3 demons to support. How much depends on the size of your portal. The crystal of the energy is naturally transmitted by the painful Queen Mesti. Nicholas has a sore face, knowing that the space from the endless abyss to the Orient continent is so far away, and the energy required to pass the portal of the Demon King is a huge astronomical figure. Even in the history of Orient, most of the demon summoning rituals are merely summoning low-level demon, dogs, succubus, and other demons. The legendary demons of Barlos are very rare, the demon monarchs. The projection is even rarer. But at this cost he had to pay, although initially he was forced to choose the kingdom of Itan as a sphere of influence under the pressure of the tyrannical Lord Razga. Judging from the current situation, this decision was not completely wrong. In addition to the kingdom of Itan, other principalities and city-states of southeast, which were divided by the rest of the dark forces, have already become a human hell, plus Orc-West. The levy has become the most horrible and most tragic place. The blood family can never get a large territory with a large population and peace. I will provide enough energy to summon the arrival of the 3 demon monarchs, Nicholas said with a bite. I hope that this dark parliament and the decisive battle of the Lord's Church can be a great victory. It is best to kill and injure several enemy sanctuaries, and then completely suppress the infinity of the sun, so that you can sit back and relax. Once the devil leaves the endless abyss, the strength will drop to a certain extent. The 7 demon monarchs can be called the semi-god strong in the endless abyss, but in the world of Orient, only the tyrannical Lord Razga once showed the power of the demigod level. But even so, the 3 demon monarchs are at least 3 genuine sanctuary strong men. Together with the reinforcements of the bones and the blood of the blood, they have surpassed the Church of the Lord of the Sun. How do you see this victory? Very big. Prince Nicholas finally gave up the plan to escape, and began to collect the resources needed to open the plane portal, and to face the army of the Lord of the Sun in Milan. At this time, in the camp of the Holy See, Cardinal Raphael, the head of the Knights of the Remnant of the Sun, and the head of the Inquisition, Nietzsche, were listening to the teachings of Infinity, the Lord of the Sun. My Lord, from the glory of the Father to the whole of Orient, the Holy See is the #1 enemy of all the dark forces of the whole of Orient. Now the darkness is raging. Why do you want to change the original strategy and make a big fan? Cardinal Pulfil is the old man with the white hair. He is the oldest of all cardinals and a former sanctuary. I am afraid that I will become the primary target of the Dark Council. Be careful. In fact, this issue has been lingering in the hearts of the high-ranking people of the Holy See, but no one dares to speak out to the Lord of the Sun today. He is not the former Pope Benton XVIII, but the existence of faith. Only Raphael has the qualification to rely on the old and the old to challenge this question. It's not that I insist on doing this, but I have to do it. Infinity, the Lord of the Sun, is no longer in the face of these 3 former glory of the Holy See. Because he not only surpassed the 3 in the ranks, but also received their faith and became their master, so he explained, how many brilliant believers in the world of the Orient world. According to the census of the Holy Calendar in December 1786, about 180 million, Raphael, although old, but his mind is not confused, he replied directly. Yes, there are not more than 300 million people in the whole of the Orient continent. The number of believers in the Father is over 60%. This is not too young, too remote, and not allowed to believe in the Father Infinity to elaborate, the self-achievement of the Lord of the Sun, only to know that this belief is a double-edged sword. God grows up because of faith, and the collapse of faith will also cause God's. The Father is gone, the faith of the entire Orient human being in a short period of 1 or 2 months, many people fell into madness, self-doubt, and even questioned the existence of the Father. If we continue to maintain the original strategy, I am afraid that the situation on the mainland of Brunt will be clear, and I will not receive any more. In addition to the Holy City and the beliefs of Francon. it is necessary to know that the relationship between infinity and the glorious Lord is too deep. All his things are created by the generosity of the glorious Lord. Now it is natural to bear the consequences of the collapse of the glorious Lord's faith. If it is another demigod who wants to seal the gods in the future, it is natural to preach after the collapse of the glorious Lord's faith, to expand the faith, but the infinity, the Lord of the Sun, is impossible if he does not want to be destined. Then it is necessary to rob the basics as much as possible before the glory of the faith has not collapsed, and expand their beliefs. With the power of the late morning Lord Elijah, it is still impossible to grow the divine power from the believer's faith, and the infinity, the Lord of the semi-God, is naturally impossible, but his hands are in the hands of two brilliant lords. Relics coming down, Holy Cross and glorious revelation. Brilliant revelation can transform the believer's power of faith into a radiant power, and infinity can use the Holy Cross to transform the radiant power into his own sacred power. Although glorious revelation transforms the power of faith far less than the former glorious Lord itself, this effect has gone far beyond all epic and legendary magical things, enough to be a true artifact. With the help of two real artifacts, infinity, the Lord of the Sun, temporarily gained the authority to be acquired by the real gods. Although the conversion efficiency is extremely low, if the 180 million glorious Lord believers can no, even if 1/10 is converted to the Lord of the Sun, then infinity will be able to obtain a large number of brilliant masters. Not only can these brilliances make the entire Holy See maintain their combat power, but they can also help themselves to move faster toward the step of igniting the faith of God. So when the undead King Bads died in the Rhine Union, infinity did not have any action. When the Orc army smashed, and the ruin crushed one city and another city-state, infinity quietly attacked the kingdom of Iton, the king Beniast. One after another, the special envoys of the 12th came to the holy city of Vatican. Infinity only saw it, but after Prince Nicholas became the blood-stained Nicholas, infinity finally couldn't sit still. To be continued.